Good evening. My name is Charity Johnson, and I am a senior at Overton High School. During tonight's board meeting, the district would do a special presentation to the coaches who were on the bus transporting the children who were a part of a local football team. In addition, they will discuss how several schools will soon be entering the I-Zone, which is a school intervention model to promote academic success in our priority schools. Also, for our juniors and seniors, a presentation will be given on college readiness. And lastly, the board will vote on the revocation of Gateway University Charter School. Thank you for watching. Have a great night.
Got 30 seconds. That's for the search coming up. Okay, that's not any of these.
It is on add
Yep. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that needs to be added. And if you want, you can handle this amendment. Just announce it. That these words are being added. What we did in the work session. So add.
So you're doing this, or am I doing this?
You're doing that, and then I'm adding that one and the superintendent's, this one and the superintendent's contract. Because we have to add an ad hoc committee instead of following any other division.
For this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shelby County Board of Education's January 29th Board Business Meeting. Ms. Anthony, please call the roll.
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Orgel. Board Member Woods. Board Member Love. Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Present.
Board Member Orgel. Chair, you have 6 board members present.
We have a quorum. We'll now stand for the presentation of the color guard. Tonight's color guard is from Whitehaven High School. Commander First Sergeant Zurich McGee, Sergeant Major LaKayla Taylor, Second Lieutenant Desmond Howard, and Second Lieutenant Julian Jordan.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence, and we want to ask to keep in your thoughts Jason Dixon, a teacher at Brewster Elementary School. You may be seated. For tonight's Spotlight on the Arts, we recognize that nationally these students that could benefit most from the arts education are receiving in the least. In SCS, we are committed to make sure all students have the opportunity to participate in high-quality arts learning. An example of this concept is featured tonight. As Ridgeway High School theater student, Jalen Price and Marquez Lambert will perform a scene entitled Getting It Back from the Ridgeway High School fall production of Almost Maine by John Karani. The Ridgeway High School department is under the leadership of Julie Watson and Principal John Stencil. Lindo! Lindo!
Huh?
Lindo. Hey, I need to talk to you.
Okay, what's up? You okay? I thought you weren't coming over tonight because Sandrine got to that party thing. Hey, you okay?
Linda, I want it back.
Huh?
I want it back.
What?
All the love I gave to you, I want it back.
What?
Now.
I don't understand.
I got yours in the car.
What?
All the love you gave to me, I got it in the car.
What are you talking about?
I don't want it anymore.
What?
I made a decision. We're done.
What?
We're done. I decided, and so all the love I gave to you, I want it back. It's the right thing to do.
Well, I don't have it.
It's in the car.
You said.
I can get it for you, or you can get it.
Well, I'm not sure if I want it back.
Well, I don't want it. What am I supposed to do with it now that I don't want it?
I don't know.
Well, under the circumstances,
Under what
it doesn't seem right
circumstances?
for me to keep it, so I'm going to bring it back.
Gail, what are you... I don't understand what... Gail, what are you doing?
I told you I'm getting all the love you gave to me, and I'm giving it back to you.
Well,
Here you go.
I don't want it back. Whoa, you need help?
Nope. I've got it. It's not heavy.
And this is...
All the love you gave me, yeah?
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Whole lot.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, what am I supposed to do with it all? I'm not sure if I have room.
Well, I guess you'll have to find a place for it now, won't you? And now, since I gave you yours back, I think it's only right you give me mine back. Because I want it back. All the love I gave to you,
Yeah.
I want it back. So go get it. Linda, go get it. Please? Now!
Okay.
What is that?
It's all the love you gave to me.
That is not. There's no way. That is not. Is that all I gave you, Linda?
Yep.
Oh. Okay.
Why don't you open it and... Hey, you okay?
I told you we're done.
Why do you keep saying that?
Because because when I asked you if you ever thought we were going to get married, remember when I asked you that in December, it was snowing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, when I asked you that, you got so quiet, and everybody said that right there should have told me everything.
Everybody who?
Everybody.
Who?
Everybody. Marvelyn said that.
Marvelyn.
Yes, Marvelyn said that how
Marvelyn
quiet
said
you
like
got was
she's an
all I
expert.
needed to know, and she was right. You don't love me.
What? Well,
and I've been trying to fix that. I've tried to make you love me. I gave you every bit of love I had, and now I don't have love for me left, and that's not good for a person. And so all the love I gave to you, I want it back because I want to bring it with me.
where are you going?
I need to get away from things.
What things? There aren't any things in this town to get away from.
Yes, there are. You.
Me?
Yes. You are the things in this town I need to get away from because I have to think and start over. And so all the love I gave to you, I want it back in case I need it. Because I can't very well go around giving your love because that's all I have right now is the love you gave me. I can't very well go around giving your love to other guys.
Other guys?
That
There
just
are other
doesn't
guys?
seem right. No, not yet, but I'm assuming there will be.
Gail.
And now, since I know you're not ready for what comes next, for people who've been together for quite a long time, I think we're going to be done. And
What?
the right
No,
thing
Gail.
to do now is just return the love we gave to each other and call it even? Oh, jeez, Cole, is this really all the love I gave you, Linda? I mean, I know I gave you more than that. What kind of person am I? This is all the love. No. Linda, did you lose it?
What? No,
Linda,
Gail, no.
did you lose it? Because I know I gave you more than that.
Pulling something. I'm not pulling something on you. I wouldn't do that to you. It's just, I think maybe you should just take all the love I gave to you, and I guess I'll see you later.
Linda. Linda, what is this? Linda, what is this?
It's a ring.
What?
It's a ring.
Oh, Linda, this is a ring. Is this a ring? A ring you give to someone you've been with for quite a long time to let them know you're ready for what comes next with people who've been together for quite a long time?
Yep.
Oh. But all the love I gave to you, where is it?
It's right there.
What?
It's right there.
What?
It is. That's it. You gave me so much over the years.
11.
Over the 11 years.
Yeah.
You gave me so much of it that I didn't know what to do with it all. I had to put some in the garage, some in the shed. And when you asked me if I ever thought we were going to get married, there was more of it than ever coming in. And I had to ask my dad if he had any suggestions what to do with it all. And he said, "You got her a ring yet?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, go get her one. It's time. When there's that much of that stuff coming in, that's about the only place you can put it." He said it all fit. And he was right. That thing's a lot bigger than it looks. So, there it is. All the love you gave to me. It's just not in the same form as when you gave it.
Yeah.
You still want to take it?
Yes, I do.
Keep it.
Can I keep all of that?
It's yours.
Thanks. Linda, you didn't have to give me a ring. This is what I was asking.
Yes, I did. It was time, and it was honorable.
Well, this is very beautiful. Oh, Linda, I'm so sorry. It's just that I was just in Dre's special red party.
I know.
And she and Martin are getting married already, and that got me thinking about us.
Shh.
And I was talking to Marvelyn, and she said that.
Oh my God, we missed it.
It's okay. Thank you.
Thank you to the Ridgeway Performing Arts. Thank you so much for coming out. So we have a number of special recognitions tonight, and so in order to be more expedient with our time, we have a couple of teams that we're going to recognize, and we would like to ask them to come forward and to my left, and then we will take one picture at the end with each team. The first to be recognized will be the Maxine Smith Academy Girls Soccer Team. The Maxine Smith STEAM Academy Lady Knights soccer team completed an undefeated season. The team captured their second straight small division championship on the field, competitive grit and complementary team sportsmanship. The 2018 Lady Knights built their season with teamwork ethic, hard work, and having fun. The coach is Kyle Kasusti, and the principal is Michael Dempster. If the Maxine Smith team will just come forward and line up here, and then we're going to take one picture at the end. Okay, we are also recognizing the Maxine Smith STEAM Lady Knights volleyball team, who captured their first small division championship over Bellevue Middle School over a 2-1 win. The 2018 Lady Knights built their season with teamwork, ethic, and hard work. Again, the coach is Kyle Kasusti, and the principal is Michael Dempster. And if you guys could line up here, and we're going to take pictures right after we call each one's name. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay. The girls volleyball coach, is Margaret Norris. Next, we're going to recognize the Ridgeway Middle School Team Large Division Volleyball Championships. Hard work, dedication, desire to finish number 1 propelled this team to victory. The support of the Ridgeway Middle School staff, parents, was second to none. Teamwork made this dream work. The principal is Corey Williams, and the coaches are Paula Watkins and Jason Calhoun. Oh, if you guys could stay up. We're just calling all the names, and then we're going to all come up and take board pictures with each of the teams. Okay. Next, we're going to recognize White Station Middle School, who recently won the girls' soccer championships. We're proud of their accomplishments, and if there are any of the White Station Middle School students here, if you could come forward as well. Next, we're going to recognize Chickasaw Middle School football team, who stand undefeated as league champions and county champions. The team showed great work ethic and determination this season. We are so proud of them. The principal is Jameson Morrison, and the head coach is Eddie Chalmers. We are lastly recognizing the Havenview Middle School football team under the leadership of Coach Earl Harmon, was crowned both the SCIA Large School Champions and the TMSAA Large School Section Champions. The goal of the season was to repeat the championship, and they did just that. The Mighty Tigers have the 4 Large School Championship Award in 5 years. Let's recognize them. Board members, if we can come forward, we're going to take a picture with each team separately, and then we'll move on to the next recognition.
guys. So I do it with the guys. Why don't we have a good try to get it? Congratulations, guys. Good job.
Okay. Board members, at this time, we would like to take a moment to do a special recognition for the Orange Mound Youth Football Players Association. The Orange Mound Youth Association football team were headed back from an all-star game in Dallas, Texas, when things took a turn for the worse. The bus crashed near Little Rock, Arkansas, involving 40 children, parents, and coaches. On behalf of Shelby County Schools, we would like to take time to recognize this amazing group of individuals and thank them for their heroic efforts during a time of tragedy. We will continue to keep all of you in our deepest thoughts and prayers. At this time, we would like to ask the following coaches to please come forward: Jeremiah Blackwell, Sean Elin, Damian Halen, Verquatrix Hill, and Shantae Williams. The following team moms were on the bus when the accident occurred, serving as chaperone and mom to many of the children until their parents arrived. Please come forward, Sarita Harris and Gloria Wright. We would also like everyone to please stand and recognize the mother of Cameron Johnson. Miss Kimberly Lee, please come forward. Ms. Lee, on behalf of Shelby County Schools, we would like to extend our sincerest and heartfelt condolences in the loss of Cameron. We would like to also present you with a small token of our appreciation and love for you, so that you know that Shelby County Schools always has your back. Ms. Lee was not able to make it tonight, but we know that all of our coaches and players will put their arms around her on our behalf. If there are other players from the association to come forward, we would also like to make sure that you're recognized.
Yeah, we have experience with that. Okay.
So. Okay, we are now on the approval of the agenda. Are there any amendments?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would like to add permission to engage the community around general rezonings, CNC pilot lab kitchen renovation phase 2A, CNC wall demolition and replacement, permission to engage community Hamilton Elementary and Middle, and permission to engage the community Raleigh Egypt Middle and Raleigh Egypt High Schools. And I would like to amend agenda item 12.2, Charter School Revocation, Gateway University, add language. Recommended says effective at the end of the 2018-2019 academic year.
Okay. Can I add my item too and then do? Okay. Superintendent, there is one other item I'd like to add, which is to the Superintendent Search and Installation Committee charter. Because we don't have a charter for how we start the search process, we do have to add it as an ad hoc committee, and so that will be presented tonight if there is no objection. So this would go on consent or as action items to the agenda if there are no objections. .12.7. Mm-hmm. So there is one other agenda amendment to an agenda item, which is 7.12. I'm sorry, 12.7, and that's board allocations resolution, and we're changing the dollar amount. Are there any objections? No objections? There being no objections, those changes are made. This is 12.7 is on the board allocations. That number is changed, and it's changed to $78,597. Seeing no objections, if there are no further amendments to the agenda, we could get a roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Love. Board Member Bibbs. I'm sorry. My apologies. Board Member McCormick. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant. You have 6 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passed. The agenda is approved. I'm sorry. So now we're on the approval of minutes of the previous meeting. This will be a, sorry. I'm going to ask them to put public comments in 25-point font so that I can never ever forget it again. We have now 30 people that will be speaking, and I'm going to read. Tennessee law makes no specific provisions for the participation of the public at meetings of local boards of education. However, board policy provides that not more than 30 minutes of each regular business and special call meeting shall be devoted to public comment. Speakers must state their name, home address, organization he or she is representing, if any, and subject of the presentation before they are permitted to proceed. Speakers may offer objective comments about the school operations and programs that concern them. Speakers are asked to refrain from using names of personnel or names of persons connected with the school system, particularly when lodging a complaint. Speakers will not be permitted to engage in gossip, making defamatory comments, or use abusive or vulgar language. The chairman shall have the authority to terminate the remarks of any individual who is disruptive or does not adhere to board rules. The timer projected on the screen to your right and directly behind the board will turn yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining. When you hear 2 bells, your time has expired. Each speaker gets 1 minute each. I'm going to call the names of the first 3 speakers. Sheriff Richmond, Rick Black, and Judo Mickens. If you could come for Jacob Mickens. Miss Richmond, if you could come forward. Miss Richmond?
Can you hear me? My name is Sharice Richmond. I'm here with Gateway, the school Gateway. They trying to close Gateway, and I was just speaking on behalf of my children. Gateway has been inspiration to my children. Like the school. The school, the principal went to different neighborhoods in our community and pulled children from Binghamton, from Orange Mound, from all over the city, bad neighborhoods. When Gateway was starting, it was only a certain amount of kids, or a certain particular kids could go to East High School. They had to have a certain GPA to go to East High School. So that means that a lot of kids in our community could not go to East High School because it was a lot of kids that was in special education that couldn't, meet up with what they wanted them to meet up with. So that means all the kids had to go to Douglas Elementary. But at that time, the Gateway School came along and they were starting to open.
Ms. Richmond, I'm sorry, your time is up. There's only 1 minute per speaker because of the number of speakers. Ms. Black?
This is not, her name is Sincere. She's from Gateway.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Sincere Steele. I'm a 10th grader at Gateway University. This is my 2nd year going here. I chose Gateway because I would like to be a part of the first class to graduate from Gateway. It would look good on my resume attending an IT school. It is my dream to go to college for free with an IT scholarship. I know Gateway University will make my dream a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Black.
My name is Rick Black. My address is 3420 Patricia Ellen Drive. I represent my company, CorePro Safety Training. The subject I want to address is our CTE programs of study, in particular the OSHA certifications. It has been my honor to provide that OSHA certification for over 100 students over the last year through Sheffield, the Southwest Career Tech Center, and Cordova, and then Carver High School too under the another program. The reason I'm here tonight, and I do have some information I want to leave for the board members to look at later at their leisure. We've come into some challenges in making the more certifications happen through schedules and what I perceive as maybe some red tape. And I understand that's probably no one's fault, but I would like to, my takeaway here tonight, if I could, to get a point of contact person to coordinate and facilitate so that I can also take the students into the industries as well with my contacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there's someone that could follow up, thank you. Next, Mr. Mickens.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Mickens. I'm representing Mount Bethel MB Church. The address is 2506 Dedrick Avenue in Orange Mound, 38114. And I'm here tonight to talk about y'all putting Dunbar into the I-zone area. And you always said that proof is always in the documentation. And it appears that someone has failed to look at the Tennessee State Report card for 2017 and 2018 to see the tremendous improvement that Dunbar has made. The principal over there, the staff, and the leaders, they've done an outstanding job with the students. And I think it'll be a disservice to Dunbar, to be a disservice to the students, if you interrupt that school and make it an I-zone, where you take it from a very supported staff where the students know the teachers to a staff that they do not know new people coming in. We support changes, we support progress, and I know everybody talking about designation 2025, but we can't even get past 2019 to try to do the right thing. So I think that it'll be a wrong situation to put Dunbar into the I-zone. And then there's a scripture in the Word that talks from Luke, in the Gospel of Luke, where the vineyard dresser went out, and he went to the fig tree, and it didn't have any fruit. And for 3 years, and they was about to cut it down. And he said, just leave it alone. So we're asking y'all, leave Dunbar alone. May God bless you.
I'll call the next three speakers: Takira Hill, Lyle Braxton, and Benjamin Inman.
My name is Takira Hill. I am a 10th grader at Gateway University, and I'm asking for you to please not to revoke our charter. This is my second year here. And in a minimum time, we have progressed tremendously. Why did I choose Gateway University? That's a great question. I chose Gateway University because I love the standards that the teacher and staff set for us students on a daily basis that encourage us and pushes us to be successful and try new things. We all get along and motivate each other to rise up higher than what others think of us. I would love to finish my high school years with Gateway because it has been the best experience for me.
Ms. Braxton?
My name is Zaya Braxton. I'm a 10th grader at Gateway University. This will be my second year attending Gateway, and I'm asking you to please not shut down our school. I live in North Memphis, which is not exactly a safe neighborhood. So Gateway provides safe transportation to a school that's safe and to a school where I'm loved by my teachers and fellow students. Gateway University is more than a school. It's a family. I'm asking you, please, don't shut down our family.
Mr. Inman?
My name is Benjamin Inman. I am a 10th grader at Gateway University. I have been at Gateway University for 2 years. Since the start, I I love the community at Gateway University. I love the one-on-one connection between the teachers and the students. Also at Gateway, they encourage you with your own passions. As an example, Dr. Didi got us clubs and whatever you wanted to do, like singing or dancing or drawing, he encouraged it and made it happen so you can do it. Dr. Didi has worked really hard for this. He has shown what a real man is like and what someone I can look up to. He is the first one to arrive and the last one to leave. So he has worked really hard for this. Please don't shut down Gateway.
The next three speakers, Jasmine Pruitt, Genesis Collins, and is it Devin Jackson? Ms. Pruitt?
Yes. Jasmine Pruitt, 892 Hackberry Lane, and I'm here in support of Dunbar. So 2 days from now marks the 2-year anniversary of Dunbar Elementary being removed from the school closure list. 2 years later, I'm back in front of the board fighting for the school that I love. The board is proposing making Dunbar Elementary School an I-Zone school. Now, the SES website states that an I-Zone school is a subset of Shelby County schools designed to turn around underperforming schools. And in order to accomplish this goal, you have to have key elements which include empowered, effective principals. We have Dr. Gentry, high-performing teachers, the staff is sitting back there, and extended learning day, which Dunbar has. Now, we don't have an I-Zone district support team, but we do have an amazing parental and community support. Now, Dunbar was tasked to show substantial academic growth in exchange for remaining open. At the point of closure, we were a level 1 TVAS school. At the end of last school year, we were a level 5 TVAS school. So that means in 1 year, we went from the lowest possible score to the highest possible score. And many of the schools that this board wants to remove from the I-Zone program have not grown in the way that Dunbar has grown. So instead of stunting the students' growth, you should let us keep the community that we have and continue the way that we're going.
Genesis, you've grown up a lot since the last time we've seen you. You have Genesis back. It's on you.
Good evening. My name is Genesis Cause. I am a second grader at Dunbar Elementary. 2 years ago, I came before you and asked you to keep Dunbar open. Now I am back asking you to not make Dunbar an I-Zone school. We are making Dunbar and learning and growing every day. We have an amazing community at my school, and that includes the teachers, support staff, and principal. Please do not take our family away. Thank you.
As always, Genesis, well done. I'm sorry, I couldn't read the writing exactly, but I think it's Devin Jackson. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Devin Jackson, and I am a proud parent of Dunbar Elementary. I feel like there should not be no change. The changes have already been shown when the school have been to a level 1 to a level 5 school. Now you tell me what other schools have jumped just like that. Other schools have been pushed them up on the rug, but Dunbar have worked very hard to get from step 1 all the way to step 5. Now you tell me what other principal give their kids a hug each and every day. Now you tell me what other principal does that, but the only one back there. Now you tell me what teachers, staff shows love to their students each and every day. You tell me what school does that, because I think Dunbar is the top notch. Now you all tell me what schools does that, because I think Dunbar is the number 1. And I do feel like Dunbar should stay open. It should not be an I-Zone school, because the change have already been shown when you got these people back here, these beautiful people in the back. So now, please, just keep Dunbar open and keep the change as it is, like it is in the back. Thank you.
The next three speakers, Lisa Jurgensen, Arthur Scott, and Latanya Jones.
Good evening. Good evening. Lisa Jorgensen, United Education Association, 743 Beasley, Memphis. I'm here to say thank you, school board members and interim superintendent, Dr. Ray. Thank you for being here with your dedication and time and attention for our schools and our students. In Tennessee, the Red for Ed movement is being driven as the Tennessee 2020 Vision, a campaign for the Tennessee legislature to fund the students and the schools to the Southeast average. This is admittedly a low goal, but distinctly above our current funding. And we also need to stop the practice of making high-stakes decisions based upon a dysfunctional test. This Friday, February 1st at 5 p.m., educators, parents, and community members will be participating in a Stand Out for Public Ed. There will be 2 locations in Memphis, the corner of Poplar and Highland and the corner of Union and Cleveland. We invite all to participate. We would like to invite you to wear red, bring signs, and Red for Ed. Thank you.
My red's a little bit more stylish. I went for the tartan. Chairperson A event, distinguished board members, Superintendent Ray. My name is Art Scott. I'm a high school teacher at Bolton High School. I teach science. But tonight I'm representing the United Education Association and all employees of Shelby County School. I would like to ask, Superintendent Hobson did a great service last year by raising the wages of all full-time SCS employees to a living wage of $15 per hour. We commend him for this. Regardless of how you feel about the minimum wage, these jobs are not entry-level, teenage-type jobs. These are hard workers. So thank you, worthy board members. However, in the month where we celebrated the birth of the great Dr. Martin Luther King, can we not also consider a living wage for the part-time employees of SES, Dr. Ray, like our groundskeepers, our nutritional workers, and other part-time workers? We can do it to the full-time. How about our part-time? They also have families to support. Board members, thank you so much for your time.
Ms. Jones.
Okay. Hello, my name is Latanya Jones, and I wanted to touch bases on something similar to what he just shared. I'm happy about the raise that we just got, but not being funny or anything. I just wanted to say, I work with Shelby County Schools. I'm a TA, and we all make the same thing. I just feel like I have a master's degree, and then I have someone over here with a high school diploma or a CDA making the same things as myself. I just feel like there should be a boundary between the two. I have $200,000 in student loans, and they have zero. I just feel like at some point, human resources, somebody need to sit down and kind of separate the two, because I feel like it's not fair. And also, we all know, teachers, the praxis test is hard, but you have to do what you have to do while you can until you could do better. But I just feel like it should be a boundary between the two. I'm happy about the $15, but I should not be making the same thing, the same pay as a person with a high school diploma or GED. That's an insult. Thank you.
Next three speakers, Cheryl Scales, Reverend Kenneth Hill, and Eloise Tate.
Good evening. Good evening to the board, to the new interim chair. Congrats, new board members, returning board members. We thank you for your leadership and being here. I am here speaking from Orange Mound. I'm a Dunbar graduate of Melrose Junior High and a Melrose high school going on to Princeton and Harvard. I'm proud Orange Mound, 3 down and bound always. We were here 2 years ago. We made a great and courageous decision to keep Dunbar open. We are super pleased about that. And I am here today, as you have heard the great progress that has been made in Dunbar. I'm here on behalf of many in the community to offer up a fulfilling part of that conversation, and that is to make sure that we offer the board and its administrative leadership the opportunity to have a small team of us sit down and talk about the educational future of what should happen at Dunbar. I have heard many things, including iZone. I am not sure what is involved in each one of those, but the community deserves to have that kind of a planning conversation, and we are asking that on behalf of a school that has shown tremendous growth, has more to do, and doesn't want to be in an emergency situation going forward. We can be a partner. We are a partner. We've done outstanding things. Everybody in Dunbar say what? Say what? Stand up, Dunbar! We're a partner. We would like to do that with you.
Reverend Hill. Are you Miss Tate? Okay, go ahead, Miss Tate.
Good evening. iZone is a subcategory of the Shelby County Schools designed to turn around underperforming schools. Dunbar is not underperforming. Dunbar have and live by a mission. That mission is accomplished through the use of demands, which includes an empowered, effective principal, high-performing teachers, extended learning hour, and more. And the mission is moving toward excellence through the arts and academics with high expectations and no excuses. Dunbar also has a vision which is committed to academic and social excellence in every area, every day. They equip the scholars to be motivated, educated, and empowered. Give Dunbar a tour. Actions speak louder than words. And meet Dr. Gentry. You may say, how? How do they do it? Would Dunbar staff please stand? This is how they do it with this awesome staff, a high-performing staff.
I'm sorry, but we have run out of time because we have so many speakers tonight. Thank you.
To our distinguished board that's doing a tremendous job for our city children of Memphis and the Shelby County surrounding area, we applaud you for your work. And tonight, I'm Reverend Kenneth Michael Hill, 2553 Park Avenue, heart of Orange Mound.
Reverend Hill, if you could speak into the microphone just a little more.
Oh, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
I stand on the shoulders of Dr. Mickens and Sister Cheryl and all those that have come before me representing the impressive and improvement Dunbar has made under the leadership of our great principal, Dr. Gentry, and her staff. We thank God for Dr. Hobson's, who's outgoing, even though he's gone, what I'm trying to say, he helped us to improve, and we appreciate that. And we don't want any changes at Dunbar. We're poised to galvanize whatever support we need. We represent Melrose vicinity, Golden Wildcats with pride and humility, and we will come from the north, south, east, and west to maintain what we need for our children. We have 2 there, my wife and I.
Next 3 speakers, Charles Scott, Louise Crump, and Charles Everett.
Charles Scott, 3689 Huckleberry Street, 38116. Speaking for United Shelby County Council, PTA. Just like many of the speakers here, I know I can't possibly cover everything we had to say in 1 minute, but I'm just glad to see so many parents, students, and teachers out here advocating for their schools and community. I would ask the board member when you get a chance to look at the material that I gave you in the folder. There's a lot of information there, so I just try to hit on a few things. First, I want to congratulate Superintendent Ray and wish him the best. Also want to congratulate Commissioner Teresa Jones on being appointed as the city court judge. Also for the school board, this last week was School Board Appreciation Week. Also congratulations to Westwood High School PTA who won a national PTA grant, Connect with Google. And Middle College High, in case you didn't know, was recognized as a bronze high school in the U.S. News 2018 high school national ranking. Also, we want to recognize our own Rosemary Winter. She puts the T in PTA as the 2019 Teacher of the Year. You'll see in your folder more information concerning our Founders Day. We want to invite you to that event as well as Teacher Talk. Again, there's a lot of pictures, a lot of events. I encourage you to look at it later on. Thank you very much for your time.
Excelente, Mr. Scott. 1 minute. Ms. Crump.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this afternoon. I am here to represent 2606 Select Avenue, also known as Dunbar Elementary School. I'm here to speak on behalf of Dunbar Elementary. As a teacher at Dunbar, I strongly feel that the proposed changes for our beloved school should be reconsidered, not only for the students and teachers at Dunbar, but for the community at large. It has truly been a team effort to positively change the direction and image of the school and surrounding area. Not only has Dunbar shown academic growth by moving from a level 1 school to a level 5 school during the course of one academic school year, but we have consistently shown growth on the district's mandated test this year. We ask that all positive strides and changes we have made be taken into consideration before making a decision that could have an adverse effect on the hard work, blood, sweat, tears, and love that have been poured into Dunbar Elementary. Thank you.
Charles Everett, 1084 Craigwood Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, representing the school that won the Google National Grant, Westwood High School PTSA. Commissioners, I'd like to take the opportunity to say thanks for listening to the voices of the people in selecting our interim superintendent. He embodies the qualities that your constituents have asked for in a superintendent. In my role as an advocate for students, families, and teachers across the state of Tennessee for Tennessee PTA, those qualities mirror what those aforementioned groups look for in a leader in their respective districts. The ability to communicate with and relate to all people, the ability to listen and show empathy, the ability to implement effective and measurable programs for the betterment of students. I know it's the board's prerogative to conduct a national search to find a permanent superintendent to find that greener grass. But if you believe the district is headed in the right direction and the programs in place will lead to favorable outcomes that you desire, then I say don't add to greenhouse gases and climate change by flying all over the country looking for a greener grass. Dr. Ray is the right choice. Thank you.
The next three speakers, Ellen Oliford, Kim Broadway, and Jonathan Mangrum.
My name is Ellen Olford, and I represent Dunbar Elementary. I serve as the women's pastor at Central Church, and I work with the Rise to Read. It is my honor to share with the board tonight and with Superintendent Ray. We thank you for loving a great school, Dunbar Elementary. As you can see, as we've gone from 1 to 5 in our education, it is a privilege for me to be a part of a Rise to Read, which serves in the reading of second graders to improve the reading scores. We serve there 5 days a week. We're helping come alongside a great staff, a great administration, great students, great parents, and Dunbar community. This is a historic area. Orange Mound is a meaningful area, a historic area that we want to love and do everything that we can to be a blessing to encourage the board, to encourage this great school, and to continue to take our reading scores higher and higher. So thank you for loving Dunbar Elementary and for helping us continue to be on course as we go further to be the best school. Thank you so much.
Ms. Broadway.
Good evening, Superintendent and board members. My name is Kim Broadway. I am a paraprofessional at White Station Middle School. My reason for being here this evening is to speak on behalf of the paraprofessionals, ESPs as a whole. First, I would like to say up front that we love our school and think the world of our principals. This letter is only to address the issues that we are having concerning our compensation. Firstly, I want to address our sick time as well as our vacation pay. As a whole, we should have at least 2 personal days per year for personal concerns. Our sick time should be utilized for days when we are ill. Around the fall of 2010, our vacation pay was taken away without any explanation, which caused hardships for many of us, making ends meet during the summer months. And the vacation pay provided us with a cushion. If we were provided a 40-hour work week instead of a 35-hour work week, we would see a big difference in our pay. Secondly, although we are considered paraprofessionals, we are educators who make a difference not only in the lives of the students, but in the teachers that we serve.
Thank you, Ms. Broadway.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Jonathan Mangrum. I represent the PTO at Dunbar Elementary. And as you guys have heard, the numbers don't lie. Dunbar went from a level 1 to a level 5 in a short amount of time. There's a school that you guys are looking to take out of our zone, which is Cherokee, who we see that their scores didn't advance as drastically as Dunbar did. So just think about it. As a child, would you have wanted someone to come into your home and change your home and its complexion? Look at these kids that are here. As a parent, I wouldn't want someone to come into my kid's home and change its complexion. Change what they're used to, change their teachers, change the love that they feel every day. So I ask you, reconsider. Think about investing that money, make it a community school. Do something to uplift this community. Give them the resources. They already have the added hour every day. And it's showing where the work is being done. So make the change, but make the right change. Thank you.
Darcy Osheim, Claudette Boyd, and Vincent Smith.
Hello, board members. My name is Darcy Osheim. I'm at 5037 Allrose Avenue. I'm here on behalf of Getwell Elementary School. We've heard a lot from Dunbar, and I'm new at Getwell. I have 2 little tiny kids, 3 and 5, and I've never felt more love for my kids than at Getwell. We have a very new principal. She was on maternity leave for half of the year so far. She's done great things. We love her. We want her to have support. The teachers want her to have support, and she needs time. She needs time to improve the school. They've already done so much. Enrollment is up, right? There is an educational boost. My kids are learning so much. If it wasn't for Miss Hudson, my son's special ed teacher, he wouldn't be able to tell me that he loves me. He's speech delayed, and a month in her classroom has gotten him to say the words that I've wanted most. That's something special. And that's not just her. That's every teacher at Getwell. They deserve the time. They deserve it. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Claudette Boyd, 713 Birthstone Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm here to cordially invite you, Dr. Ray, and all board members to participate in the State of the Education in Orange Mound Conference on Saturday, November 9th, 12 noon, 2572 Park Avenue. We as stakeholders are concerned about the changes, proposals that you're making concerning the future of community schools, Dunbar, Cherokee, Bethel Grove closing. However, your approval of 2 charter schools in these same neighborhoods. We're still concerned about the attendance zone issues, Aspire handling, adding a junior high as compared to Melrose Junior High. We ask that all people, parents, stakeholders involved come to a summit we're having in Orange Mound to discuss where do we stand with the SCS. What's going on for 2019 up to 2025? And please bring with you all the plans, all the proposals, and everything you have for Orange Mound community. Thank you.
Ms. Boyd, did you mean February 7th?
February 9th,
February
next
9th,
Saturday.
okay. You said
12
November.
noon.
You said November, so we just want to make
Oh,
sure
I'm
you are
sorry.
planning.
February 9th, 12 noon.
Okay.
2572 Park Avenue at the beautiful downtown Orange Mound, Tennessee.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Superintendent, distinguished Shelby County School Board, parents, children, teachers, friends. I am Rear Admiral Vincent Smith, United States Navy retired. I am currently the Vice President of Operations for Boys and Girls Clubs of Greater Memphis. We have been a partner with Dunbar Elementary for the past year, providing both before and after school programs. I can tell you, we are very pleased with the partnership we have with Dunbar Elementary. We see nothing but a winning team at that school. I have seen through my 32 years of service with the United States Navy, winning teams. I have led them, I have served with, but I'm telling you, you have a winning team at Dunbar. You have a principal. I have served with people like General Schwarzkopf, Desert Shield, Desert Storm. I'm not saying Dr. Gentry is General Schwarzkopf, but I'm saying she has those kind of leadership characteristics, and she has a team that is doing some superb thing at Dunbar. If you do anything or make any decisions here tonight, I recommend you not change anything you have at Dunbar. Thank you.
Last 3 names: Tequila Rucker, Kimberly Waller, and Chandra Boykins.
Good evening. Tequila Rucker, President of the United Education Association, the Teachers Union. First, I want to thank Dr. Ray for meeting with us on last week, the unions, and also I want to thank the board members for your appreciation and everything you do as service to the community in lieu of the board member appreciation last week. Priority schools. The schools that are on the priority list, there's a concern, and I've been asking this question for a couple of weeks now. What data is being used to determine what schools are being added to the list of I-Zone schools and the rest of the schools that are coming off the list? I need to know if that data is from last year, the year before, the year that we had faulty data, or is it years prior to that? So I will be looking for some information regarding that. Also, Board Member Love spoke about assessing the programs that we have in place before we add new programs. And hopefully this will give legs to the assessment audit that we asked for in August 2016. The district is using a lot of programs, but they don't have an department that can adequately assess the data that is coming back so that we can ensure we're not duplicating that data and going forward with our students. So Any additional concerns, I will follow up with an email to you all. And the last thing is, Board Member Avant, you said there will be a nationwide search. Where are we in that process? When will community, teacher committees, parent committees, and student committees be created so that we can ensure that we have adequate or the best person in place to as superintendent? Dr. Ray, we do support you, but we will advocate when there's a need for us to advocate as well. So thank you.
Good evening. Dr. Kimberly Waller, 2795 Getwell Road. Getwell Elementary School. Hi, thank you all for listening. Dr. Ray, congratulations. I would just like to add to what the parent said just a little while ago, that we have a brand new principal. Are we going to make mistakes? Everybody say yes. We're going to do that. But are you going to give her a chance? Can she get a chance to prove that her name is Tina L. Smith, principal of Getwell Elementary? She too deserves that chance. She can't do it if she's already covered in a cloud. As I sat in the back, I heard one person ask another person a question about, is that the Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. But she's still a new principal, so I'm asking, is there any type of way, even if we're getting the treatment for iZone, that she remains the principal at Getwell Elementary School? Thank you.
What's your last name?
Good evening, board and parents and everyone present. My name is Chandra Boykins. I am here on behalf of Gateway University. My address is 5187 Battle Creek Drive, Memphis, Tennessee. Again, I'm here to support Gateway University, but I must first say that I am a product of Shelby County Schools. And in growing up, my mother always told me that something great had to come out of North Memphis. Something great had to represent the education of then called the Memphis City school system. Well, I am here because after my children left Downtown Elementary, and you've already heard from my son, Benjamin Inman, I vowed to give them a great education. An education where the principal is there before them and is there several hours after them. He's a very hardworking young man, and the educational staff and team members are there to support him. Something great. Gateway needs the support of the Memphis City school system, the Shelby County Board. Empower us, partner with us, work with us. Do not close Gateway University. Partner with the charter. Charters and Shelby County schools should not merge, but should partner together. Use your tools to empower Gateway, not close Gateway.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
We're now on the approval of previous meeting. That will be in approval 7.1 of the December 4th business meeting. 7.2, approval of the December 12th special call meeting. 7.3, approval of the minutes of January 9th special call meeting. Approval 7.4, approval of the minutes of the second January, minutes of the January 9th special call meeting. 7.5, approval of the January 2nd, 22nd work session.
Motion to approve.
So, a motion by Mr. McCormick, a second by Ms. Love. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick? Aye. Board Member Orwell? Aye. Board Member Woods? Aye. Board Member Love?
Aye.
Board Member McCormick? Aye. Board Member Bibbs? Aye. Board Chair Avant?
Aye.
You have 7 votes in the affirmative.
The minutes are approved. We'll now move on to the committee reports. First, I'd like to just take a moment to say we did have a small celebration for Ms. Jones today to recognize her and thank her for her board leadership. Thank you to all the board members who got a chance to stop by, as well as some of the district staff. We did just want to take a moment to say how much we appreciate her for her tenure on this board and her exemplary service. 2 questions about our next steps for the superintendent search. We are having a meeting tomorrow, which is open to the public, where I have before the board tonight a charter for us to create an ad hoc committee that will include community members. It is really important for the board to first decide on a timeline for the national search, and then the components of that national search do include community engagement. We will have liaisons from the board who will include making sure that we have input from district staff, from teachers, from parents, and from students. I think student voice is very important in this process. So that will be steps that are outlined tomorrow in our timeline. The board will have to make an agreement about those timelines and steps, and then we'll move forward in that engagement process. I'll now move forward with the Academic Performance Committee report.
Thank you, Chair. Academic performance has been really busy this month. We had a presentation titled Equity in Action that was done by Dr. Burt. We talked about the Memphis Teacher Residency Lab School topic. University Middle School was a topic. Charter school policy, which will have its first reading today. Charter revocation of Gateway University was a topic of the committee. We actually had the grievance hearing on yesterday, and as well as we had some additional questions around CCTE. And we will be meeting next Tuesday, the 5th, to continue on with some of these current topics, as well as new things that Dr. Ray will be adding to the agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Bibbs. I did want to make sure to notate that I did forget to add that the board and Dr. Ray have agreed to terms of his contract. We will need to have a public meeting per our policy. I've checked with General Counsel and our parliamentarian. So we will have to make sure that's noticed to the public in order for us to vote on that process. So we will try to find a date next week, hopefully to piggyback on meetings that are already scheduled, but we'll poll the board in order to do so. Audit, Budget, and Finance.
No report at this time. No report at this time, Madam Chair. We are meeting tomorrow, 4 p.m.
Capital Needs and Facilities.
Ms. Phelan, do you have anything you want to bring up from our meeting last week?
We had a discussion about the board contracts coming to the board. We also had a discussion on an offer for vacant land, the former Graceland Elementary, and then we had a conversation about vision prep and rent relief, and then we also had a discussion about potential rezoning items. Those were the items we covered in the meeting.
Community Outreach and Engagement Report.
Thank you, Chair. So we did meet on last week, and the Community Engagement Department and the Communications Department gave an update on the events that will take place on next month, because Black History Month is next month. So please visit the SCS website or ask your school for information pertaining to those events. We also discussed our ACE training, and I'm happy to say that we have a large number of employees who have been trained on ACEs, and more information will follow with that next month during our work session, where Chief Johnson will present our equity audit, the scope of the work, and all the areas of concern that will be involved in that audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Love. I do just want to take a moment and thank Commissioner Whaley for coming out tonight. He has been an active member and participant in making sure that Shelby County is really engaged with the County Commission. I know there was a meeting this afternoon really to discuss some of the work moving forward under pre-K, under facilities or footprint, and then equity and action for our students. So we appreciate his support. Evaluation Committee report.
Thank you, Chair. We had a meeting last week with Pete Gorman, who's assisting us in developing and modifying and expanding the evaluation tool, along with staff of the administration who's been working to put this together. It's it'll be a little more complex. There's still more work to do, but we hope to have it wrapped up soon and present it to the full board.
Thank you. Internal Board Operations, Ms. McKissick.
IBO met on Tuesday, January 15th, and we discussed a resolution to document the board's completion of the biennial review of the SCS policy manual. We also recommended a revision to policy 2010 SCS minority women and small business enterprise participation. The policy is up for its first reading. And we had a status update on the employee handbook provided by Chief Smalls, and we also looked at the business systems review.
Thank you. Legislative and Advocacy Committee report.
Thank you, Chair. The Legislative Committee met last week, and one of our topics of discussion was around more clarity around our background checks. We do know that it was a law passed last year that stated any employee who was in close proximity of our children who have been employed over 5 years must have a background check. I know the media is here, so all of our employees, once hired, do receive a background check. There was a new law passed that said any employee who has worked over 5 years in the SCS school system who is in close proximity to our children must have another background check. So that means that we have about 6,700 employees who would have to have a background check. I am happy to say that the HR department, they have already started the process of making sure that we adhere to that law. Our board members will attend the TSBA Day on the Hill, which is February 18th to 19th. Any board member that will be attending Day on the Hill and you have not submitted the names of the representatives that you want to see, I ask that you submit those names tonight. This will give our board office time to schedule meetings with the appropriate people. So anybody who's going, if you've not submitted those names, please submit them tonight. Also, February the 20th, Shelby County Schools, we will take students from all of our high schools, all SCS high schools, have been provided an opportunity to select students from the Student Government Association to attend Students Day on the Hill, and this will be in partnership with the Tennessee PTSA. I do want to thank the FACE Department and also the Student Affairs Department and the Curriculum and Instruction Department for assisting us. This year, when our children return, they will have an assignment that they will have to complete once they return. And this will just help our children to know and understand the process, how laws are handled, who our lawmakers are that represent Shelby County. Thank you.
Procurement Committee, there isn't a report at this time. Superintendent report.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you to the board for supporting me my first week. And I want to thank the staff for a wonderful first week transition and also this great board agenda that I have before me tonight. First of all, I want to say that I visited many schools over the last week or so. We lost a student, Caden Love, 9 years old, 4th grade student, Sherwood Elementary School. Board member Doris Coleman and myself, we attended the repast, and Ms. Coleman, Board member Coleman, attended the services. So the parents, they were, of course, heartbroken and tough loss. We visited the classroom. The teacher, Ms. Washington, who was in great spirits and continued teaching her class, but encouraging her students to think about the good times with Caden. Keep the family in your prayers. Also, mentioned earlier, I visited Brewster Elementary yesterday, and we lost a teacher, Jason Dixon. I knew Jason because I was his professor with Cambridge College, and the staff and the principal, they were just teachers, students, they were all heartbroken. So keep that staff in your prayers. Tonight, we're going to talk about the KPIs, Key Performance Indicators, presentation on priorities 2 and 4. We're going to talk about improving post-secondary readiness and expanding high-quality school options. And tonight's presentation is going to detail fault lines that we've identified in high schools and how we're going to address these fault lines. So followed by their presentation, Dr. Burt will present the Equity and Action Plan, which is a vital part of the 7 steps toward Destination 2025 that I shared last week. Also, to the staffs at Getwell and Dunbar, we hear you. And hopefully, Dr. Burt's presentation this evening will shed light on the prescribed intervention, the innovation zone. So, Jessica Lotz, then Dr. Burt. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight, our KPIs all have to do with priorities 2 and 4 of Destination 2025, and we put them all together this year because they also align.
Jessica, can you make sure you're speaking into the microphone?
Sorry, is it? You can hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
And these also align really well with the state's new ESSA requirements regarding ready graduates. So all of the criteria that you already identified as a board you wanted to look at here are all parts of how the state is now defining college and career readiness for students when they graduate. So with that, we'll start with a little bit of 18-19 data, and everything that you'll see in this presentation includes both charter and district managed schools unless it's otherwise noted, so I just want to make sure you knew that off the top. So here what you're seeing is all of our middle schools based on their enrollment size and also the number of unique honors courses they offer. So this isn't showing you the number of sections of the same honors course, but all of the different subject areas and honors that they offer. And the thing that jumps out very quickly is that the larger the school, the more likely that school is to offer a variety of honors courses, because you see, especially for our schools that have less than 300 students, the majority of those don't offer any honors courses right now. To sum this up in a couple of different ways, about a quarter of our schools have 11 or more honors courses, half of them have 1 to 10, and then another quarter don't have any honors courses, and out of those, 8 are charter schools and 5 are district managed, and out of those district managed, 2 are alternative schools. So looking at the same information for high schools, our advanced course offerings include not only honors, but dual enrollment, statewide dual credit, advanced placement, and international baccalaureate. So that you see even a stronger relationship between the size of the school and the variety of courses that are offered. So none of our schools with 400 or more students are not offering any courses. And in fact, we only have one school that isn't offering any honors or advanced courses of any kind. And that school is the Newcomer International Center. So you may expect that students that are new to English are focusing on those foundational skills and making that transition before they go on to more specialized coursework. So again, summing that up, nearly a third of our schools, high schools, offer 41 or more types of advanced courses, 40% offer 21 to 40, 27% offer 1 to 20, and then we have one school that does not offer any advanced courses. So our next area of KPIs for this month is around AP participation by race and ethnicity, and then we'll show some other subgroup data. So on the left-hand side of this graph, you can see the demographic breakdown of all of our high school students, regardless of what courses they're taking. And then on the right-hand side, you can see AP participants specifically. So you can see that multiracial Latino students are represented about the same in both groups, but we see fewer black students represented in AP and a larger proportion of white and Asian students participating in AP courses. Looking at this over time, a different way, this is showing you the rate of participation within each group by itself. So, for example, this previous year, 7% of all black high school students participated in one or more AP courses, 10% of Latino students, 22% white, 40% of Asian students, and 11% multiracial. Overall, our percentage was close to 10%. We also looked at this just in our district managed schools, so this is just to show you that the trend is very much the same when we take out our charter schools in terms of what these AP trends look like. So next, looking at the same information according to economic status. So the red bar shows you the percentage of economically disadvantaged students who are participating in AP, and the blue bar shows you non-economically disadvantaged students. So we're seeing a small improvement in the percentage of economically disadvantaged students who are participating, and actually a little bit of a decline in non-ED students. So that gap is closing a little bit, but we still have some work to do to make sure that each group has equal access. Our next set of KPIs is around AP exam scores based on race and ethnicity. So AP is done on a scale of 1 to 5, and typically a score of 3 or better will help that student earn college credit before they go on to a post-secondary opportunity. So here you also see some gaps in performance when you look at the average score itself on a scale of 1 to 5 on the left, and then the percentage of students that earned a 3 or higher on an AP exam on the right-hand side. So here we see that in both instances, white and Asian students tend to perform at higher levels, and our black and Latino students are struggling more to meet those same levels of success. But one thing we wanted to call out here is that even within those groups, this looks different for charter versus district managed schools. So when you look at the average exam performance for black and Latino charter students compared to district managed students, there is a pretty notable difference in performance, and that's also similar for the percentage of students who are earning a 3 or higher. I know I'm moving fast because it's a long agenda, but do you guys have any questions so far? Just good? Okay. Okay.
So Jessica,
yeah.
what we would like to do is Dr. Burt to do the equity and action plan, and then it'll address some of the fault lines that we actually raised here.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and switch over. Just...
No, I got a question for you.
Okay.
When you're done, I want to ask you questions before Dr. Burks come up, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Well, why don't we just go ahead and let's go ahead and entertain the question. Dr. Burt may be able to address some of that, but I don't want him to lose the thought of.
Back to your slide that shows the percentage growth that's broken down in demographics. Internally, Dr. Ray, have we set any goals amongst those demographics? And maybe Dr. Burks will talk about that. Like right now, you said overall we had a 9% participation in AP. Are there any goals that have been set, or you just come to report that information and next year you report 8 or 12? You're just reporting?
Well, I think Dr. Burt will address that in his presentation.
All right, so when Dr. Burks come up, I also want to know why do you provide the data broken down by schools, or
yes, actually in the handout that you have, there's several different KPIs that we're going over tonight that give you the school by school data, and for the listening public, those are posted on board docs as well.
All right, so just 2 more questions. First question is, since we know most of the AP courses are concentrated in just a handful of schools, particularly those in the double-digit amounts, compiling that information into one report can likely give misleading information. And so in Dr. Burke's report, we'll talk about the fault lines, particularly where schools are not meeting or don't have those AP courses. Because I'm interested in hearing more about the variance and like 30 at White Station, but some schools with 0, and getting some information on that. So will your report speak to that also?
It's in the handouts that everybody has.
Brad.
So most of the data points that are referenced in this presentation, I think you're asking about the qualitative why is it happening that we have, but the what of the breakdown of the schools is within your packets. But I think you're asking a question of why is that the case and what are we doing about it?
Right. And then I think the final piece is, what's the rationale? You talked about pulling the charters out to show, and one of your slides showed the percentage of our students that are taking AP as opposed to the charters. What's the rationale for pulling them out in your report, since they're...
Yeah, I think it was just a question that our executive leadership had to see, is there a significant difference in participation? And here we don't see a significant difference in the trends either way if you go with all of the high schools versus the just district managed. But we did see a pretty notable difference in performance itself. So once students are in those courses, how they're performing. And so this is something we wanted to highlight because we think it's something we need to get better at.
Okay, and so my final point on that, Dr. Ray, is like when you present this data, is there a storytelling component, or we're left to draw our own conclusions? Because when you put those graphs side by side, one could draw the conclusion that we're simply outperforming our charter partners. One could also draw the conclusion that because more disadvantaged kids have access to AP, then you're naturally going to get that outcome, much like when we start offering a free ACT test to all of our 11th grade students, as opposed to just those who could afford it. You see a dip in the score because for the first time, poor kids are seeing that test, and then over time, you hope to see an upward trend. So what story are you wanting us to be left with when you present that information?
Well, I know my role is to be descriptive. But
is that fair? Is that fair?
Yeah.
And perhaps maybe Dr. Burks can speak to that, because when you bring the KPIs to us, I'm hoping that the goal of the district is to tell a story or cause us to act, and not just to say, because the reason I brought that up, because I remember the legacy SCS used to do that a lot with MCS score, right? You put them side by side, you said, we're killing it, right? Look how well we're doing compared to our counterpart. And so I'm just making sure that's not the case here, that our goal is to say, how do we get all these kids to take more AP courses?
Well, Board Member Woods, we want to ensure that our students are competing, and not only that, we want to create high quality options for all students.
Okay.
So I think Dr. Burt's presentation will definitely hit on some of those points and questions that you have this evening.
Appreciate it.
So I'm going to move on to the other questions, Ms. Love, and then we'll Ms. Bitts.
So do you have the information when you spoke about some of our high schools and even our middle schools who have AP courses, the percentage of the ones that are online, virtual school?
We don't have that broken out here, but if that's a request that you'd like us to follow up on, we can provide that.
I would like to know that number. And then even with some of our schools that have an optional school program inside of the school, I would like to know on the traditional side, how many students are taking AP courses versus the optional school side.
Okay.
And when you spoke about, I think it was a slide where you said that there were more Asian children taking AP courses than African American?
No, just a larger proportion relative to the overall demographic makeup. So only 2% of our high school students overall are Asian, but 8% of our AP course participants are Asian. So that's a fourfold difference.
Okay, so I would like to know the demographic breakdown of our white, Asian, and African American students, the population in the district. I would like to know that. And then also, this is another reason why I'm glad that we'll be presenting that equity audit next month, because we know that there are inequities in all parts of the district, and that equity audit will actually not only bring out what needs to take place, but as Board Member Wood stated, it'll actually tell the story and fix some of those issues. Now, I do have a question, one last question. Grandview Middle School. So I see on here that there are 4 students taking an honors course.
There's
and I know
4
that
honors courses. 4 honors courses.
I'm sorry, okay, 4 honors courses. So my question is, I know that we are supposed to be a district of innovation. I know that Grandview Heights Middle School is in the I zone. I also know that the principal created a opportunity for the students, and this is not just for you, it's for Dr. Ray, Dr. Leon, and Dr. Burks, and Chief Johnson. So I do know that Grandview Middle School, the principal created a program that will assist the students there who were already performing at or above grade level. I also know that the support from the district, because it was an innovative way to keep our children in the Fraser community, but also provide them with the academic rigor needed to keep them on the right path. So I hope in the equity and action plan, Dr. Burks, even if you don't have it now, I hope there will be a conversation on how we support principals, especially in the inner city, who come up with innovative ways to keep our children growing, because I know now that that program has not been supported. My daughter attends that school. That program has not been supported, and now it's almost non-existent. So when we talk about equity in action and we talk about improving academic rigor, I really hope that we take a look at not only just the bright spots, but go deep down in the inner city schools and make sure that we are supporting those schools so all of our children can be on the path to success.
Ms. Love, thank you. That's always our goal, to be honest with the data, very transparent. But not only that, to learn from one another. So if someone's doing something in some of our schools that's a bright spot, we definitely want to learn from that. So I do challenge Dr. Burt and his team to reach out and to learn from Mr. Barber.
Ms. Bibbs.
Thank you, Chair. So my question is more so around access regarding taking the AP test. And I'm saying this from a constituent concern regarding if you don't have the dollars to actually pay for taking the test, what are we doing to ensure that those students who actually have an opportunity to take the class actually have the opportunity to actually take the test? Because I think that's a disconnect there as well. I want to know those numbers. How many people are signed up to take the test or sign up for the class, but then actually show up to take the test as well?
Thank you, Ms. Bibbs. Jane Smith is here from Advanced Academics. Ms. Smith.
If you could repeat the question again, I was walking up when you were saying it, but as far as paying for economically disadvantaged students, the district, through a combination of state funds as well as College Board, waiving of fees, economically disadvantaged students don't have zero cost for paying for an AP exam.
Okay, so this particular constituent was at a high school where they told them they didn't do that. They didn't know what they were talking about.
So Ms. Bibbs, can you provide us the name of that high school, and then we'll follow up.
White Station.
Now, twice a year I meet with the AP coordinators and outline for them the process for AP exams being paid for by the district and College Board and everything. We line everything out for them and give them an explanation that every student that is economically disadvantaged does not have to pay for any AP exam.
Well, I think I'm making a point to say we often come up here and do great presentations and we talk about where our gaps are, and then when it gets down to schools and parents show up to schools and they want to be supported in a way, and then at the school level they're not supported. We can say that this is what we want, we can say we need to make changes, but I want to make sure that all schools are on deck around what we feel as a board and understanding what equity in action looks like.
Absolutely, Ms. Bibbs. So I'll get that information and I'll follow personally.
Thank you, Ms. Bibbs. Mr. Woods, did you have an additional question?
Yeah, additional questions, and these are particularly related to how the stats were represented. And so, been on the road. Apologize, I've been on the road for 5 hours. So, if my if my answer was a little, or my question was a little discombobulated, but the report that you provided helped me understand why it was alphabetized. The report on, yeah.
I guess just
so let me pause for a second and restate it. So you provided a report with a lot of numbers, right, on scores and AP, number of schools offering which AP courses, but yet you alphabetized it. What was the rationale for presenting it that way?
I think when you're printing something, it's just if you're trying to look up a very specific school because you each have a set of schools in your zone, that might be the easiest way to sort of tick those off. But if you would like for us to provide an Excel version that you can sort different ways, we can do that too.
That would be great, because the first thing I want to look at, again, I went back to the storytelling piece, is I want to know which schools are knocking it out the park, which schools are needing additional support. So an ascending or descending order that reflects which schools are offering the most courses and which one we're not providing that support to. And then also a breakout of, you showed us a combined graph on the students that are scoring 3 or better on AP. So can you explain what the 3 or better means, just so the public can understand what?
Right.
that actually means.
For most colleges, if a student earns a 3 or higher on the exam, then they'll get college credit for whatever that subject is. So that's essentially like a pass rate for AP.
So my follow-up question there would be, and for you, Dr. Ray, is it why combine it as opposed to a breakout of which schools representing? Like, for example, you provided a list of schools, you provided a number of AP, but like, could you have added a column that said, at this school, here's the
pass rate.
average score? Because that tells a story also, right? Because if the 3 or betters are concentrated in 2 to 3 schools, then that's a challenge also. Again, maybe that's going to be reserved for Dr. Burke's presentation. I'm wide awake now, if you can't tell, because that's what I want to know. Are the schools in my district scoring 3 or better, or do we need to provide additional resources to help them get there? Is there a specific demographic of students that's raising the tide for all other students, or is this reflective across all demographics? But I'll stop there. Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes, on the table it says the number of advanced course offered in high school, and I'm looking at one school in specific. It says the total number of honors is 22 at Melrose High School.
Yep.
We have 22 honors classes at Melrose.
Yes, should be unique honors courses. So not the same sections. So I would only count Algebra 1 honors one time, even if it's offered 6 times a day.
You only count it once if it's offered 6 times a day.
Right. This is just the unique different course offerings. So how many different unique courses could one student take? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it doesn't go with what I've been told at Melrose High School.
Okay.
I mean, something is not coming together here, because according to this, that there should be 22 honors classes. So I guess my definition of what an honors class and what this definition of honors class are 2 different definitions.
Are you saying that they are offered the classes, but I guess she's asking how many are actually enrolled in the honors classes?
No, she's saying, excuse me, you're saying that there are 22 honors classes inside of Melrose High School.
That we can associate student grades with. So we looked at report card grades to try and verify that students were enrolled and actively participating in the courses. But would it be helpful to get you a list of what those are? Okay.
Very helpful.
So, Dr. Ray, I think board members would like some of this disaggregated data for their districts, because the information that you're sharing, that the staff is sharing with us, seems more like what is offered, but it doesn't necessarily equate to what students are taking. So
Yes,
if
ma'am.
if you
We'll
could
definitely follow up.
disaggregate that data, it would be great.
Sure.
Dr. Burke? We're ready.
And it's a question of
how much left? How many?
Dr. Burke.
Are they loading? So good evening, Dr. Ray, board members. We really want to focus on this really in-depth analysis around where we are as a district. So when we wrote the Equity and Action Plan, we focused on 4 key levers. First lever being equity, also early literacy, high school and core instruction. If you think where we are as a district in regard to equity, and I want everyone to remember, equity doesn't mean equal. Equity is removing barriers in order to get to equality for all students. So as a district, our early strengths around equity, we have reserve funds to make financial decisions. We've secured funds for 2 21st century schools. We've also implemented student-based budgeting in order to meet the needs of schools across the district. So that goes back to Ms. Love's earlier question around what are we doing as a district for principal creativity. One of the strategies is SBB, but this year will be increasing the cap where principals have more funds to be more flexible around. But with equity, there still are current challenges. We have low diversity of students participating in CLU. There's limited diversity of teachers, workforce representing the student population in which they're serving. There's a significant number of buildings with low enrollment that requires extensive maintenance and upgrades. There's also a need for greater enrichment opportunities for students who are excelling on coursework, i.e. AP, i.e. IB. There's a need for deeper understanding of standards, but there's also a need to have greater exposure to more rigorous coursework across the district. Some of the key strategies in order to close those gaps: we must identify and support the training of potential pre-AP, honors, and AP teachers across all of our high schools. Research will show there's a strong correlation with kids that attend or participate in AP courses, how they perform on ACT scores, but also how they fare in post-secondary education. Currently, as a district, 23% of our students score 21 or higher on the ACT. That's unacceptable. We also must provide universal screening for all first grade students. As a district, we must let the test determine which kids go into CLU and which kids are going to be on that track from first grade throughout their 12th grade career. So I'm proposing as a district we do universal screening for all first grade students and let the test determine which kids participate in CLU. Also develop a targeted strategy to really strengthen the district efforts around attracting and recruiting candidates that represent the students they're serving. And you see a proposal around consolidating our two Hamiltons, Hamilton Elementary, Hamilton Middle, to really have a more robust academic program, and to separate Raleigh Egypt Middle and Raleigh Egypt High to have two separate campuses. Another strategy around equity is to really focus on enrichment. Oftentimes, we have to spend a lot of time on intervention, but what about the kids that's actually excelling? In Legacy Memphis City, we had a program known as M Squared, where we identified kids that was in the 65th percentile or higher, offer Saturday enrichment for them. I'm proposing to really have that program for 6 through 8 middle school so we can help out our high schools, but not only focus on math, but also focus on literacy. Restructuring the I-Zone to include all priority schools. There's been a lot of conversation tonight around I-Zone. I want to remind everyone how we got here. In 2012, the state passed legislation to identify any school that entered into the bottom 5% as being eligible to be taken over by the state or matched with a charter. Those schools are identified as priority schools. A priority school is any school where you take English, math, and science divided by the number of test takers and get the overall percentage of on-track mastery. If you fall within the bottom 5% of that particular grade band, whether it's elementary, middle, or high, you are identified as a priority school. In 2012, we had 69 priority schools. Fast forward to today, and I think it's something for us all to be proud of, we have 25 priority schools. 18 of those 25 are SCS managed schools, and the other 7 are charter schools. Of that, the one intervention that's shown to really move schools out of priority status is the I-Zone. 16 of the 23 schools that have been in the I-Zone have completely came off the priority list, with a lot of those schools earning reward status, means scoring in the top 5%, whether it's growth or achievement. And we have another strategy to really focus on going into the 21st century. We're really gradually phasing in, having a one-to-one device, starting with our high schools. We want to start with 9, but do a gradual phase in with that. So this is the restructure of I-Zone. First page, you'll see schools that on the left side that will be leaving the I-Zone. And then schools on the right side will enter or remain in the I-Zone. The goal around the restructure is in 2019-2020, the 18 priority schools that's in Shelby County Schools will be receiving centralized support in the district's recognized intervention that's recognized by the state, which is the I-Zone. Components of the I-Zone, there's a 1-hour additional school day. Principals have autonomy around programs, and also teachers have the opportunity to be creative.
Dr. Burke, I just want to interject. or can you answer this? Can you talk about iZone as it relates to teachers and fresh start in school and disruption of staff? That's what we've heard tonight.
Yes, sir. So I would say as a district, we are in a great place in regard to restructuring with the iZone. We have to remember on last year, a lot of the schools, for example, Get Well, I heard that on tonight, we did reassessment of principals at certain schools. There's not anything automatic that says a principal that's currently at a school that haven't been at that school 3 years or less will not be able to return to the school. The iZone components that's approved by the state that the district accepted is any principal that's been at a school 3 years or more that enters into the iZone has to be changed over. Teachers at the school have the option to apply to stay at the school. The principal, whomever that is, has the ability to bring back up to 50% of the existing staff. So there's a myth that everyone in the building is forced to leave the school. That's not true. Teachers have the right to apply. The principal at the school has the right to bring back up to 50% of the existing staff. But all the positions would have to be posted at the school. Now, how schools get to that status is not based on a single year. It's important for us to remember when we think of priority schools, the magic number is always 3. The state doesn't look at one single year of data. They look at 3-year trend data in ELA, math, and science divided by the number of test takers. It's also important for us to note that doesn't solely factor in growth. You have to factor in achievement, meaning the number of kids that score on track or mastery. This is the proposal for our high schools. We know there's a lot of work around high schools, really moving our high schools in the right direction. As I mentioned earlier, we have a recommendation around starting the conversation with the communities in the Hamilton and Raleigh-Egypt feeder pattern around what's the best option to really support those schools. Currently, Hamilton Elementary sits at 356 students. Hamilton Middle has 228 students. We have a proposed recommendation to absorb those schools to have a K-8 model with 584 students. Also, we have a recommendation, if you recall how we landed with Raleigh-Egypt 6 through 12, one of our charter operators in the summer of 2017 pulled out 10 days before teachers reported, which forced the district hand in absorbing Scholars Academy, which was housed in Raleigh-Egypt. We projected 189 students to come to the school. If we look now, we have 424 students, which is a true middle school model. In order to best serve that community, we're proposing to separate those campuses, because it was Raleigh-Egypt Middle and Raleigh-Egypt High, have 2 separate campuses where the middle school can be ran on a true middle school concept. This is what the state looks at: alpha, beta, delta. If you recall on last year, I did a presentation around these 3 tracks. A school is identified as a delta if it's their first year on the priority list. Beta, they've been on 2 priority lists. Alpha, they've been on 2 priority lists but haven't shown any movement. Right before the Christmas break, outgoing Commissioner McQueen sent the district basically an updated list of the schools that's on the current priority list. As I mentioned earlier, we have 18 priority schools as a district and 7 charter schools that the district authorizes, which gives our total number of 25. This is our current priority list. Schools that are in red are currently in the iZone as of this year. Schools that are in blue are not receiving iZone support and have never been in the district's intervention iZone. That's why the proposal is to have all 18 priority schools in the iZone, where they would get coaching from a centralized team of ELA, math, science coaches, also a graduation coach, RTI advisors. I want to make a note for board members. You see the asterisk around Hawkins Mill. on the letter that came from outgoing Commissioner McQueen. Just like last year with American Way, the state has made a recommendation for us at Shelby County to close Hawkins Mill Elementary School. If you recall on last year during the meeting, we basically made a recommendation to recommend American Way enter into the I-zone. That aligns with this recommendation tonight. Mr. Wilson at Hawkins Mill has done a great job this year. We strongly believe if we place Hawkins Mill in the I-zone, they will continue on that trajectory. But we also have to submit a response back to the state. So I'm expecting incoming Commissioner Schwinn to really be looking for that letter in the next few weeks. Earlier you saw information around AP status. I did analysis as a district from 2008 into 2018. This is where we are. You know, this is something we really have to take a close look at in the mirror when we think about our schools that are also identified as priority schools. If I look at Melrose, Oak Haven, BTW, Sheffield, Kirby, so on and so forth, you see those schools really haven't shown any uptick over a 10-year period around AP courses. This is specifically AP, not honors, but AP. Also, our CLUE data. That's why you heard the strategy around universal screening for all first grade students. If we identify a student in first grade, have them participating in CLUE, the likelihood of that student going on to middle school, then in high school, being able to excel in AP is very strong. Currently, students enter CLUE based on teacher recommendation. If the teacher recommends a student, then that student can possibly be tested. This is a personal testament for me. My last school as a principal, I entered in, it was 5 students in CLUE, but that wasn't acceptable to me. I required every teacher to submit 2 names every month. 3 years later, we had 65 students and 2 full-time teachers. So I know the difference that CLUE can make, and we were back-to-back reward schools.
So Dr. Burke is making a great point. That's something I challenged the academic team to really look at the district level, to cull out through the data and find students that qualifies for CLUE.
This is the demographics by ethnic group. As you see, it's color-coded. You can see where we are by grade band. And this is the actual percentage. Universal screening will also eliminate the subjectivity by individual teachers recommending the students. Early literacy. We're off to a great start in early literacy. This year we formulated an early literacy task force team. We also developed foundational literacy quality reviews, and every elementary school have a literacy laureate that's supporting K-2 instruction. With that, we know there's still strategies on how we're going to improve our literacy rate. The 2 key strategies around early literacy, and we'll have a meeting IBO next week around this, is to develop a district policy around second grade promotion. Our literacy gap begins first grade 5th month, which is December, and it widens. 2017, we were at 21.4% on-track mastery. Last year, we moved up 5.1%. We went to 26.5. That's the number of students that score and basically proficient in advance. There's a lot of work to be done. That also makes the job very hard for middle and high school teachers if the kid can't read. So the question is, we've put money around investments, but we really got to put some teeth in this to match a policy with what we're investing in. And we have a proposal with that policy to ensure that every elementary school has a paraprofessional to support our work around literacy. High school, currently,
so Dr. Burke, can I stop you for a second? With elementary literacy, it's very important our students are reading at or above grade level by 3rd grade, at or above grade level. And what we're going to propose is going to be very bold and aggressive. So I look forward to having that conversation soon.
Thank you, Superintendent. Currently in high school, we have 3 strengths that were identified through the plan. We've done a redesign of CCTE, we purchased science textbooks, and also strengthened the district policy around grading. However, there's major challenges in high school. Last year was a TVOS level 1 in all EOC areas. Only 23% of seniors scored 21 or higher. Lack of true comprehensive curriculum and lack of expertise in our EOC subject areas. With that, we want to really identify our kids that have a strong likelihood of being successful in ACT. There used to be an exam, as you all may be aware, known as the Explore and Plan, that has been phased out from the state. We're proposing really to implement the PSAT to really measure success of students in 8th and 9th grade. So high schools can track by cohorts and then identify which kids has a strong likelihood of being successful in those rigorous courses. It's up to us to offer the courses and let the kids determine their success and not offer the courses and not give the kid the opportunity. Focus more on ACT workshops and really look at how can we bolster the staffing in high school to ensure all of our teachers in high schools are supported. Currently, high school teachers have multiple preps, so we feel it's best to support them by having a true ELA and math coach at the schools to really help build capacity. It's a hard job when you have multiple preps and you're trying to meet the EOC demand in those subject areas. Lastly, core instruction. We really feel it's our job as an academics team to really support our teachers through development. So you'll see on the proposal not only to have more face-to-face support, but really offer PD virtual, where teachers don't have to drive across the city. They can do it at their leisure, but still have the same content. This is the list of the prioritized investments. So board members, we will have further conversation around what this looks like, which areas should receive more attention over other areas. We feel these areas mentioned are the ones will definitely move our academic needle from our current standing to one to where consistently a level 5 district. Lastly, I want you all to know that there was a cross-functional group that met. This equity and action plan wasn't developed in isolation. There was cross-function. We identified 5 key guiding principles, also 5 key core values. We want to make sure we have clarity of language. We want to make sure we're focused on being equity-mindedness. We're embracing differences. We're focusing on the continuous improvement. We have system-wide equity, and our core values are we must be committed. We must check our biases and privileges at the door, focus on communication, have courage, but also work from a collective action standpoint. And this last picture, I think, sums it all up. Oftentimes we talk about equity, but we also know there's current reality. Currently, we have, in some locations, depending upon the school zip code, it's not equity for all students. If you look at the second tab, you see equality. Equality doesn't work for everyone because someone still can't see or have the opportunity to really achieve what they could achieve. But then when you get to equity, everyone is seeing, everyone's working from the same playing field. But I challenge you all, I think the ultimate goal really should be around liberation. We really should be setting our students free from all barriers that hinder them from not having the opportunity to really be true college and career readiness. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burt. As you see, board members, we're going to be bold and courageous in the work. Early, strong literacy and core instruction will get us there, and we're definitely moving in the right direction. But not only that, we have a great team that's going to get us there. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Burt.
We have a lot of faith in Dr. Burt's leadership, and I appreciate the presentation tonight. Ms. Love, question?
Yeah, so Thank you, Dr. Burks, for the presentation. I did hear it in the academics committee meeting. But as we talk about iZone, I do want to push the district, Dr. Ray, Dr. Burks, and whoever else is involved. Last school year, there were 5 principals removed from my district because the district said that those principals were not capable of moving the students to the next level. So when we talk about bringing schools into the iZone, Hawkins Mill, new principal, Georgian Hills, new principal, Woodstock Middle, new principal. I really hope, because we do own the iZone model, right? That's our model.
Yes.
So we're able to amend, delete, add, whatever we need to do to make sure that that model is suitable for our schools, right? I don't think that it's conducive to the learning environment, being that, and all board members will have an opportunity to speak, so I really hope if it impacts your district, you speak up, being that there were principals removed from the schools in my district last year, and this year we're stating that we want to add schools to the iZone for next year. I really hope that we go back and revisit that conversation around removing principals who were just placed in a school and removing some of the staff that may have just been placed in a school and say that we want to do something different. So if we own that model, we should be able to amend, delete, add, whatever we need to do to make sure that the learning environment is conducive to the education of our children and not just removing because we've created another plan. So I want us to yeah, let's discuss.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Love. So that's something we've discussed already. First year principals, I don't have the appetite. Someone that's there, that's moving the academic needle and just got there, we have to give them the opportunity. And so I'm committed to doing so.
Another question. I see that we're moving Craigmont Middle into the iZone. Craigmont Middle, if I'm correct, has an optional program, right? So is it the traditional side that's on the priority list, or do they take into consideration the whole all students?
School.
It's
the
the entire school. So Craigmont Middle has had a 3-year trend data for on-track mastery to where they've fallen in the bottom 5% based on ELA math science performance. So that's incumbent on everyone inside the building.
Okay, so but don't you have to be, in order to get in an optional school program, you have to meet grade requirement, attendance requirement, and conduct requirement? Mm-hmm. I don't understand that.
Yes. You're correct.
So I get your question. I get where I think you're headed with the question. That also speaks to even an optional school, you have to have outstanding great first teaching, right? So I can test in, but I also could regress. So with that, it's saying as a building, the school has regressed, even under the optional umbrella.
Okay, so that goes back to asking, how long has this taken place? And what are we going to do to address that? And are there any more schools? I see Craigmont High as well. I know they have an optional program. Are there any other schools in the district where they have an optional program, but they're also on the priority list?
So let me get that to you.
Yes, we need to circle back with that answer.
Okay, and one last question. When you talk about the ACT workshops, I know that that you stated that we're going to start in high school. It is, in my opinion, that the earlier we start, the more successful or the better return on investment we'll have for our students once they enter high school, and that test is actually counted. I would prefer that we start in the middle school with prepping our children for the ACT. Once they get in high school, they'll be better prepared, and I honestly believe we'll have a return on investment.
Yep. So if you recall, in that slide, it talked about the PSAT, which is a direct alignment to ACT. So we proposing beginning that in 8th grade. And we're also proposing to have the enrichment for those middle school students that scored a 65th percentile or higher getting further enrichment. That'll align with their PSAT scores, then align with them pushing into high school, focusing on AP IB courses. But it's proposed to begin in 8th grade.
So it's going to be in all schools in 8th grade?
The PSAT exam for 8th grade students.
In all schools?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, Dr. Burks, and also your colleague. I always give her a hard time, but she knows her data. Did a great job presenting also, Dr. Ray. So, but I do appreciate you guys showing the breakout and letting us see that. Question I didn't get a clear answer on is, are we going to provide resources or funding for the increase in AP exams? I know Ms. Bibbs mentioned that. Is that part of our plan as well? Because it's one thing to have more kids taking AP, but it's a different if you can't afford to take the test when you're done. Is that part of our plan for 2019, 2020?
So the advanced academic department actually has like line items for the funding that they cover. Also, the state has funding for any kid that's identified as economically disadvantaged, like they can take the exam and the district can be reimbursed for that. So pretty much that's covered. It's a matter of like getting the kids actually in the course and then taking the exam.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a major increase in funding for that.
All right. And so I did see one item where you talk about adding the devices and starting at high school. Is that a proposal, Dr. Ray, for 1920 on the devices? Or is that?
Yes.
So it's a proposal, but I want to be clear. We've done an audit of all of the schools to see the inventory that we have, because we also got to make sure that the infrastructure inside the building is capable. One, we have the most current devices, and with that, we want to identify those schools. So we got a meeting on Thursday to narrow our list down to 9. We've reached out to principals. Those principals that want to participate, they've been identified, and based on that list, we're going to look at the 9. Then we want to do an RFP around the actual platform, because we want to make sure everything matches the curriculum, and then gradually roll it out to the schools over a period of time to where the schools will begin the second semester of 1920 to where it's not a forced beginning in August with it.
Okay. And only thing I'll add to that, it may have already been discussed in committee, but obviously we had a blended learning program before that had a lot to be desired, and it would be great if we could learn from lessons from the past to make sure if we're going to do that. Obviously, we agree with you, but we just want to make sure that it's implemented properly.
Yep. And so Board Member Woods, that's one of the main components of why we're doing an audit of the inventory, audit of the actual devices, and then before the schools and kids get them, we want to make sure the teachers and everyone in the staff have had extensive PD, because I was a part of that blended learning. I think like the gap was like PD implementation piece. So we want to get that right over the course of the summer, over the course of the first semester next school year, before the devices go into the kids' hand February, March of the 1920 school year.
Ms. Bibbs, if I could just add a question before you speak, because it was about the blended learning. Dr. Burt, when we had that big presentation about blended learning, there was a specific number of points that we said kids would increase by having these, devices within classrooms. I'm not asking you to give us a silver bullet like that was promised, but I would like for us to be able to talk about what we expect in gains from kids from that kind of investment.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll start off by saying, I'll start with blended learning and going up to my 4 questions. Just Chair Avon and Board Member Woods kind of touched on the points that I wanted to talk about regarding blended learning, but what Dr. Ray, I am happy to hear is that you said you're actually doing an audit around devices.
Yes.
Because I was concerned about that, considering the fact of just about maybe a year or so ago, maybe a year, time runs together, we paid for 15,000 brand new devices that went into schools, and to this date I'm not necessarily sure where those devices are, because we didn't get a report back saying where they went.
Yes, so we are doing an audit, and not only that, Chief Darling and his team, we're putting safety measures in place to ensure the laptops are secure.
All right, thank you. Then my number 2 point is definitely for the Hamilton K-8 combination. I know we're going to vote whether we want to move forward regarding community engagement.
Right.
But if the board as a whole has the conversation that yes, we want to move forward regarding community engagement. I just hope in those presentations we're actually really truly about talking about why it would be beneficial for that to be a K-8, what are the additional resources that will happen with it, and what new things will happen for those children if we decide to go with that type of model.
Yes, definitely.
All right. My other thing was iZone, and I think Board Member Love mentioned this around some principals that were moved last school year. And I actually had one principal that was removed who had a level 5 and was displaced as a principal. But I think as we think about what iZone looks like moving forward, that let's be real clear on having the community conversations with the school staff around. It doesn't necessarily mean if you're saying to me that, you know, as far as a one-year principal, they will be given the opportunity to be in the building. And I think that mix was left around saying that they could keep up to 50% of their staff.
Right.
Like, I don't know what happens when you do the HR meetings.
Right.
I just only know what happens when we go to community meetings.
So,
and it seems to be that those pieces of information are not told at that point in time.
Oftentimes, we usually present that information, but sometimes folks choose not to hear. But let me be clear about this. We care about our staff. We care about teachers and principals first and foremost. And I know we're not going to fire our way into effectiveness.
Correct.
So we have to call on the folks that we have to step up, receive the training, all the professional development provided, because at the end of the day, we have some of the best teachers and principals here. So I'm committed to our teachers and principals and for us to continue with the work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Our last point, for me rather, is around optional schools that are happening to be entering into the iZone. I think Ms. Love was touching on it, but I think this brings up a different type of conversation for me, because those aren't the first school that have been moved into the iZone. In fact, I know of 2 schools that were optional schools that are now state takeover schools. So to me, let's go back to the true nuts and bolts of how is that possible. Not saying for you to answer it today, because I know Dr. Bird is ready, but I think I want us to maybe go back and assess and understand how is that possible, and if we see that we're not supporting those schools, because technically they should receive some additional resources or support because they are part of the optional school category. So if there's a disconnect there, let's just make sure that we're catching that.
Mr. Orgel?
As Mr. Woods touched on it, I think we passed through it, but about the computers. So the last time, I think Ms. Bibbs was talking about this last time, about an audit. Who said something about an audit of our stuff? We turned those Lenovo, is that what it was? We gave them back. There were like 14,000 of them, is that right?
Yes.
And there was a trial, we gave them back. So one of the problems, I'm speaking like former Superintendent Hobson, he would always
he definitely whisper now.
Whisper. Yeah. So we'd get on him too. We'd say, speak up.
He definitely whispered.
One of the problems was that you take that device and you go home, and it had to be that big or something because it had to have storage capability instead of being on the cloud with the stuff they were getting. So all the programs had to be loaded on there, so it needed a bigger battery. I might be technically off a little bit. Mr. Williams probably can answer this, but we're not going to ask him. But there's a program that Comcast has, and I remember the first 3 years I was on the board, I mentioned it every board meeting, and that our families don't take advantage of. Dr. Schultz remembers this. And for about $10 a month, and I believe they still have the program, families can get Wi-Fi.
Ms. Love definitely.
And if we don't, wait. If we don't, I'm not going to support doing the computers unless there's a corresponding program to make sure that our families have Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. Dr. Phillips, take note of that.
So can I let me say something. So
So go ahead.
What I'll say is there is a program that Comcast has. There's also a program. There's a program that AT&T has.
AT&T does too, yeah.
The problem is, depending on where you live, Comcast does not service those areas, and also depending on where you live, AT&T may not service that area. You cannot have an outstanding bill with either service provider to receive those services.
Okay, well, you gotta pay your bill. So it's, but so, anyway, if you're Title I eligible, which I think is, I don't know if now they go by the new rules that everybody, it gets free and reduced lunch, excuse me. You get that service, and we could probably work on some of the issues it says, but that's talking about the minority. But we have 100 and some thousand students, and not all people are behind on their cable bill. It's just a matter of, we've got to do something to get the parents to sign up and to do it. It's $10 a month or $12 a month. I'm glad AT&T does too. I know there's problems, and we have to figure out other issues with people that don't have, but they have to go together, because you can't, it's like giving somebody a car without gas, or giving them gas without a car.
Absolutely.
I mean, either way, I mean, it's just not a good thing.
So great point, Mr. Oracle. Dr. Lori Phillips, she's already started to work and to engage Time Warner and AT&T.
Yeah, Comcast and AT&T, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying
The
that.
It was Time Warner, yeah.
Show my age, man.
Dr. Ray.
But anyway.
1988.
That was my point.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mr. Orgel and Ms. Love made a good point, and Ms. Phillips, there are some folks that are already doing some of that digital divide work. Obviously in South City, where we're doing some work, there's some people that we can talk to, because I think, to Ms. Love's point, the challenge is that, AT&T has the fiber optics that have to be put underground, and if they haven't put service in those areas, that's a challenge for our families. So I do think that it should be a combination of both. Is that the end of your report, Superintendent?
End of my report, thank you.
All right, now the General Counsel's report. We're just on 8.13.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Avant. Included in the General Counsel's report is an annual report that must be submitted to the state, known as the 2018 LEA Compliance Report. I've uploaded it as part of the General Counsel's report. I've circulated it to the board to review. If there aren't any questions, I'll ask for a motion that the board approve the report and permit me to submit it to the state in the morning.
General Counsel, if you just give the overview for the listening public.
Sure. So the LEA Compliance Report is an annual report issued by the Tennessee Department of Education that requires all school districts, LEAs in the state, to report areas in which they are complying, areas in which they can move closer to compliance, and the action plans that the LEA has implemented to ensure that path. And so this is just an annual perfunctory report that has to be submitted to the state every year.
Can I get a motion? Motion for Ms. McKissick. A second from Mr. McCormick. Ms. Love? We've done the motion, so now it's time for the questions. Is this on this? Oh, I'm calling on you.
My question is, one of the areas of non-compliance was our charter school teacher licensure. Is there anything in the charter application that requires a certain percentage of the teachers to have license?
Mr. Leon?
All the teachers need to be properly licensed by schools with whom they hire, and that's a score on our operations scorecard. So if they're not in compliance, they receive a 1 on that.
Okay, so in the compliance, framework, or the charter framework,
That's right.
They have to be licensed.
Yes.
So what's the additional conversation? Because this is a area of non-compliance for Shelby County Schools. And
Right.
because we approve charters, if they're not in compliance, which is causing us to be not in compliance, we just give them a 1. What's the next form of communication to ensure that they're following compliance rules?
So we work closely with our HR team, and when there's a licensure issue at the charter school level, they notify us and we notify the charter school and ask for a plan of action and a timeline to rectify the issue. If the issues are severe, we sit down and talk to the charter school in question. We connect them with different resources within the organization in order to make sure that they have the help that they need. But ultimately, like, we're expecting our charter schools to be compliant in this area. And if the issues are severe enough, this is one of Gateway's substantiated allegations, we will bring a revocation recommendation to the board.
Okay, so I think as a board we need to look at this, and I really hope we're going to start looking at that charter school application, because if this is an area of non-compliance and it's causing the Tennessee Department of Education to send us a letter, I think that we need to not only send the charter schools a letter requesting a plan, we need to do something else. So I hope that we're going to start amending our charter school applications to ensure that when we approve them, they're doing what they said they were going to do. And if not, we need not just a plan of action. We need changes. Dr. Wright.
Noted.
So, Mr. Leon, or General Counsel, which departments are part of putting together the compliance plan?
Yes, my office leads the compiling of the information, and we reach out to each chief to check with all of their respective department heads and divisional heads to inform us to areas of non-compliance.
So that's every department?
That is correct.
And so the question about the background checks, and I guess we're addressing that as part of what we discussed in our last, I can't remember which committee it was. Legislative committee. Okay. How is the follow-up for the plan done? These are things that we've said that we know that are areas of deficiencies for us. So what is the follow-up?
I'll defer to HR to outline the plan that they've implemented so far. I can kick it off by saying that a plan has been prepared a few months ago, I believe at this time. The plan has currently been implemented. School leaders and teachers have been notified of when they need to report. There have been phases, and they're being phased in to make this as seamless and as least disturbing to the day-to-day activities of our educators and the school environment. I'll let HR fill in the additional gaps.
That's completely accurate. We have a plan that we've shared with Cabinet. We do have monthly meetings. As issues arise, we make sure we keep Deputy Johnson informed. So we've mapped out this process, and this process is a way for us to be in compliance. When we spoke with the state, they understood that it was going to take, some time for us to be able to be compliant just because we're so large. But the purpose of us submitting this on this report is to show them our plan of action around this, and we're 100% committed in working with our security department and with General Counsel to make sure that we're compliant and that we get everyone fingerprinted.
I guess it was a more overall question to all components of this compliance report. Where's the check-in from your staff for us to know that we're on track with the plan? That's charter, school, and HR. That's everything that's included in this.
I can only kind of speak from the HR perspective, but I do know, like, we monitor our vacancies each and every week. We particularly identify those that are high needs, like our EOCs, our pre-Ks. We make sure we share that information out with our academic partners. We make sure that we have certified subs in place where we have vacancies that are priority or considered hard to staff, or that ones that the state would consider a compliance-related issue. So for us, this is kind of part of our daily work and our weekly work. It's just a time of year for us to report it out on the report, and we just make sure as an HR team that we're completely transparent in all of that.
So this is at the end of every year that we're we're compiling this. This is due in November, December, and we just make amendments to the timeline with the state's approval?
That is correct.
Okay. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick? Aye. Board Member Orgel? Aye. Board Member Love? Aye. Board Member McCormick? Aye. Board Member Bibbs? Board Member Coleman? Aye. Board Chair Avant?
Aye.
You have 7 votes in the affirmative.
Motion passes. Now to policies, proposed policy 10.1, first reading.
Ms. Stewart.
Mr. McCormick?
Just before we get started, I'm just noting that this is listed as first reading, but didn't we address these on our work session? Does that not count as the first reading? Has to be 2 voting meetings? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Has to be 30 days between.
Okay.
We have one policy before you tonight for first reading, and that's policy number 2010, the SES Minority Women and Small Business Enterprise Participation Policy. And there was one recommendation for revision, and that is to change the word disadvantage to small.
No action needs to be taken on that, so we're moving on to 10.2, proposed charter school policy, first reading.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually going to hand it over to General Counsel Irving. We did a high level at the board work session, and she's going to go through those. No, Dr. Schultz, that's the whole point. We're not going to try to read the whole document. General Counsel Irving is going to do a high level again. Also just want to interject that we will have another meeting to make sure we will okay with it, because everyone has homework to do on this 22-page document. So before it comes back for second reading, we want to make sure we take care of those points. Thank you, General Counsel.
Thank you, Board Member Bibbs. Just to give the board a high-level summary of the charter schools policy and the context and the background, this is pretty much the culmination of about a year and a half's worth of work with the Charter Advisory Committee and all of the work involved in that process. It included charter school leaders, it included state-level charter school leaders, our charter school office, and members of the board that was a part of that advisory committee. This policy discusses and fills in the gaps really for everything from our charter authorizing principles to what's required for charter school authorization, the validity of the agreement and the authorizer fee, performance standards. We just heard talk about the performance scorecard. That is detailed, that is provided in more detail for future charter sponsors as well as the board to understand when it's time to talk about revocations and granting of charter applications and renewing them, as well as the closure procedures. Shelby County Schools is typically the guinea pig for the implementation of these charter school laws, and so under Board Member Bibbs's leadership in this work, we've outlined closure procedures so that the board is aware of how that process should go. Shared services agreements, that typically deals with a charter school's ability to potentially piggyback off of an agreement that the district has already obtained for certain goods and services. And finally, a section that deals with facilities use and purchase. That was a point of contention last year. This policy is intended to answer all remaining questions about how the board will deal with facilities use and purchases as it relates to our relationships with our charter schools.
No action needed at this time. Move on to approval of the consent agenda. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. McCormick. Second by Ms. Bibbs. Is there anything that needs to be amended to the consent agenda? Okay, I'm going to read those items into the record. 11.2, Clearview Consulting in the amount of $137,500. 11.3, Mythics in the amount of $56,668.50. 11.4, District-wide Student Perception Survey. Panorama Education in the amount of $203,700. 11.5, 2018-2019 Produce Direct to Schools, amount of $1,242,811. 11.6, Produce third quarter February, May to 2019 Produce, $686,000. 11.7, 2018 third quarter Produce Local Preference, $119,300. Warehouse Pallet Racking System, $453,263.90. Gibson Mechanical Dunbar ES HVAC change in the amount of $17,565. Gibson Mechanical HVAC change order, Tresvant High School, $36,561. Gibson Mechanical change order for Raleigh, Egypt HVAC, $3,053. Oteka Technologies Network Cabling Contract in the amount of $620,000. Gibson Mechanical change order for Melrose High School HVAC in the amount of $35,555. Nixon General Contractors Whitehaven renovation, $319,000. East High School renovation, $746,973. 11.16 Bounds in Gillespie, $120,000. Evans 11.17 Evans Taylor Foster Children's Architects in the amount of $435,608. 11.18 Clark Associates Incorporated in the amount of $286,087.94. Haslip Studio 11.19 in the amount of $280,748. 11.20 John Pruitt Architects in the amount of $144,614. 11.21 Allen and Hoschel, $107,830. 11.22 Self Tucker A&E Services Kingsbury, amount of $305,725. 11.23 Self Tucker Architects White Station, the amount of $4,299. Safety and Security 11.24 in the amount of $200,000. 11.26 Kim Treatment Mechanical Systems Water Testing and Treatment, the amount of $245,980.73. 11. Sorry, I'm going to go back. 11.25. Sorry, 11.25 Resolution amending Shelby County Board of Education's fiscal budget, 2018-19 year. 11.27 Stanley Covert Service Security Solutions in the amount of $300,000, and that'll be all for the consent agenda. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Orwell. Aye. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
Chair, you have 7 votes in the affirmative and 1 present not voting.
The consent agenda is approved. So, Ms. Irving?
Yes, my apologies, Chair Avant. I'd like to make a slight correction to the third page. Mr. Ogle reminded me why I'm an attorney and no longer, I'm not a mathematician. On page 3, there's the percentage at the top about charter schools is actually, instead of 0.1, it's actually 13. It should be a 13 there. And I've updated the new document.
Is there any objection to the change, the amendment?
Now you need to re-vote it as an amendment to something previously adopted.
Can I get a motion to amend something that was the compliance report that was previously adopted?
I'll make a motion to amend something that was previously adopted and incorrectly reported by our legal counsel.
So Thank you, Mr. Orgel, for that motion. Ms. Coleman for the second. Roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Orgel. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love. Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Amen. You have 7 votes in the affirmative and 1 present not voting.
Motion is approved. Okay, we're moving on to the action items. 12.1, New Leaders Priority Schools. Superintendent.
Sorry, let me. Yes, 12.1, New Leaders Priority Schools. That's for transformational leadership contract with 10 priority school principals and principal supervisors. They'll receive intensive support.
Can I get a motion and then a second, and we can open for discussion? Motion. Thank you, Ms. McKissick. A motion by Ms. McKissick. Can I get a second? A second by Ms. Coleman. Mr. McCormick?
Thank you, Chair. Is this a continuation of a program that we've done, or is this a new program? This was on the work session last week, and we didn't put it in the consent, but I don't really remember much discussion about this item. So forgive me because I'm old. But is this a new program or?
Yes, so part of the state's approach with priority schools, this isn't the new leader where they train aspiring principals to be principals. This is basically where they come in, they're working with not only the principal, the AP, PLC coaches, everyone that's on the instructional leadership team. We've identified, in order for them to do this, the grant funds only go to priority schools. So the state gives you the recommended vendor list that you can select from, and based on that recommended vendor list, you then can solicit services for the priority schools. So this is a part of the district state priority school grant funding. We've identified our most challenging high schools and middle schools that are being priority status for them to go in and work with the entire instructional leadership team in those schools. That's over a 3-year period.
Do we have a list of the schools we're going to implement this program?
So we have, we've identified, and I can get you the list.
Yeah, have we been provided the list? Did I miss it? Or are we?
No, you haven't been provided the list, no.
Okay. And so are you saying that the money used to pay for this is coming from a grant?
Correct. It's a state priority funding grant that's, it's a centralized district support grant that only goes for schools that's identified as priority schools.
Okay, thank you.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick. Aye. Board Member Orgel. Aye. Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love. Aye. Board Member McCormick. Aye. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Aye. Board Chair Amen.
Aye.
You have 7 votes in the affirmative and 1 present not voting.
This motion passes. 12.2, Charter School Revocation, Gateway University.
It is recommended that we revoke the charter agreement for Gateway University Schools of Applied Sciences.
And I just want to be specific that this was for effective at the end of the school year.
End of the school year.
Can I get a motion? A motion by, this is a motion to revoke the charter, motion by Mr. McCormick. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Orgel. Now entertaining questions or comments. Mr. Orgel?
Yes, sir.
I was out of town. We got a lot of material. Can you boil it down, start the clock, 3 minutes, because we spent time discussing this, but can you let everybody understand, boil it down, what we're doing here, give us a little history?
Yes. So there were several allegations made against Gateway University by a former employee. We did a thorough investigation on those allegations, spoke with many members of the school leader, many folks within our organization, and found that 4 of the 6 allegations were substantiated. The 4 allegations that were substantiated was that they had essentially a non-functioning board last year, that students received grades without instruction, that they had uncertified teachers, and that there were employees who were employed despite not passing a background check. And each of those issues was backed up by a number of examples and evidence. I'm happy to go through each and every one of them, but just to the point we were just discussing, today still, Gateway has 8 of its 14 teachers are either teaching out of certification area or are unlicensed. The students who did not receive instruction last year in geometry, 4 of them are still in geometry despite supposedly passing the class last year. So the issues continue with Gateway, and we believe very strongly that if not addressed now, the issues will continue to escalate and become an even less safe academically place for our kids to be at.
Follow up to that, how many students are in Gateway in the grades?
165.
What grades?
9th and 10th.
So we hadn't added it's only 2 years old, we haven't added the 11th.
That's
and
right.
The 12th, okay. And so this was a charter that was approved in 15 and it opened in 17, or 16 opened in
17 was their first year, 17, 18.
So we're in the middle of their second year, so
That's
third
right.
semester. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ms. McKissick?
Mr. Leon, I have a question regarding your report where you mentioned about some grades in one particular class. Can you address that again regarding the discrepancy as far as students receiving all the same grade?
So we found that last year the geometry students who were enrolled at Gateway all received the same grade in geometry class, so a 92. And the claim that we found was that there was essentially no instruction going on in those courses, and that ultimately students could not have even received a valid grade without actually having instruction, and we just thought it was suspicious that everyone received the exact same grade. And moreover, to the point I just made, if they did all receive a 92, why are they all of them enrolled this year in geometry again? And that leads me to believe that the school leader does know that something was wrong with what he was doing last year and has re-enrolled those students in geometry a second year despite having a passing grade in their first year.
Seeing no other questions, roll call vote.
Question, I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Mr. Woods.
Keep your poker face, Madam Chair. Mr. Leon, you had made mention that the reason that this school is before us is because you were following up on a series of allegations. Can you just walk the board through what is the process? Because I'm sure this is not the first school that you get some type of allegation and you do your due diligence. What is the process? And let's say you get an allegation of a said school on tomorrow that your committee takes on. Because obviously if you hadn't gotten those series of allegations, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So can you just walk us through what that looks like when this happens next time?
Sure. We receive a number of allegations about charter schools in our office, and typically the process that we go through is to talk to the person who's making the allegation. We talk to the person who the allegation is being made against. We talk to other corroborating, people who might bring forward evidence. In this case, a number of staff members or former staff members at Gateway University in order to come to the truth of the matter. And in some cases, we just can't substantiate, one way or the other whether an allegation is true or false. And so there will be allegations that are made that we just can't determine the factual basis for it. But in this case, we did find that 4 of the 6 allegations were substantiated. So that's typically the process that we go through. We also engage folks from across the organization. In this case, we partnered with Safety and Security, we partnered with HR, we partnered with General Counsel and Internal Audit. This was a much more thorough investigation than we typically do because of the severity of the allegations. So we'll partner with different folks across our organization where it's merited as well.
And then my follow-up question, Madam Chair, and obviously this would be a hypothetical, but let's say we were looking at a high-performing school in which a teacher decided to give students a grade, right? Because we've been dealing with that over the last year plus, or students all got the same grade for said class. It is your position that that alone should be a reason to close the school? And I know that it was 4 out of 6 allegations, but that's the one I've been hearing.
Yeah, and let me clarify.
I just want to make sure, and the reason I want to pause for a second, the reason I'm saying that is because if that allegation, we're faced with that similar allegation with another school, I just want to make sure we're not setting a precedent based on that particular line item.
In this particular instance, the allegation was not that the grading was fishy. In this case, the allegation was that students were taking a course for which they received no instruction.
Okay.
And we found that to be the case. And the person who was listed as the geometry teacher was actually not the geometry teacher. They were the algebra teacher. They were teaching an algebra class at the same time they were supposedly teaching the geometry class. And in interviews with staff members, the former staff members at Gateway, they basically said, we never saw geometry being taught. The school leader himself said, I'll have a conversation at the beginning of the day with the kids to see if they have any questions, but then they were left essentially to teach themselves. So not only was the teacher of record not actually teaching the class, but the school leader was falsifying the record to make it appear as if somebody else was the teacher of record. So the grading was not the substantiated allegation. The fact that they did not receive instruction for a class was substantiated.
And do we want to send a strong message today that to any other charters that may be operating under SES, if that similar practice is going on at any other school, that you will bring the recommendation to close that school?
The reason we're bringing this in front of you is because our schools exist to provide strong education for our kids. And when schools falsify information and children do not receive instruction, we will bring a revocation recommendation to this board.
So I appreciate that, Brad. Again, I'm just not an indictment on you and your team. I actually applaud you for that. So I just want to make sure that's a yes or no. You're making a recommendation. You're sending a strong message today that if the board affirm this recommendation, that any school participating in a said act will be recommended that we close that school regardless of what school that is.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
So piggybacking off of what Board Member Wood stated, how often do we conduct audits for our charter schools? Because I know that based on some of the recommendations that you've made dealing with teacher license, financial challenges, how often do we conduct audits on our charter schools?
So as you know, there are a number of operational and financial indices that we look at when evaluating charter schools. So every charter school is going to be audited at least once a year, if by no other means through then their financial audit that they submit to the district. But then in all the different operational areas, we're constantly monitoring. And if we think that an audit is called for, we'll go and do an investigation at that particular school. And as we mentioned at the committee meeting, we are going to put in place, especially on the grading, an audit procedure so that we can do a better job of verifying that grades are actually earned by students.
Okay, well, so
at least once a year and potentially more depending upon operational issues.
So I don't think the question should be if we feel it's warranted. I think the question is, do you feel an audit of all of our charter schools are warranted?
We will be doing an audit of all of our charter schools, yes.
Okay, so do you know when that process will start?
Yes, at the end of this grading period.
Okay, and I understand. And making sure that the board receives the different components that you will be looking at. And I hope this is something different from the operational scorecard.
I'm speaking of an audit to look at their finances, their teacher license, and all the other things that have been placed inside of their charter application.
Thank you, Chair. So I will kind of piggyback off of what Board Member Love said. I just would really defer more so to Dr. Ray and his leadership around as he moves forward in his superintendency around what he wants to have conversations with the charter school office and where he feels things need to be. So I definitely want to make sure it is under his leadership that he has an opportunity to reassess regarding audits. I will just say this for the general public, that I did have additional questions after the grievance hearing on yesterday, and one of the things was Gateway, in some of their answers, they referred to financial things. So I did send in a question to Chief Leon around getting a copy of their audit, financial audit. His response was he didn't have one to show me. And from that was kind of alarming to me, because if you make a reference to finances is why certain things were done, then of course I want to look at your audit to see the whole picture money-wise. So I just, I don't know if everyone had an opportunity to read the email, but I do want to make that known for the listening public.
Seeing no other lights, roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick.
The motion is to revoke the charter effective at the end of the school year for Gateway.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orwell.
Yes.
Board Member Woods.
Yes.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. 12.3, resolution acknowledging the review of Shelby County's policy manual and authorizing the superintendent to make non-substantive corrections to the policy manual. Is that you, Mr. Superintendent, or Ms. McKissick?
Yes. That's me. That's Ms. McKissick.
Is this you?
12.3, resolution acknowledge review of the Shelby County Schools policies. Superintendent to make non-substantive corrections to the policy manual.
Non-substantive changes to the policy manual. Is this your item? I'm sorry. Okay, Maria.
Okay, so the policy, the resolution acknowledging the review of the SES policy manual, that's just a part of your statutory requirement, and this is just to memorialize that that was done.
Okay, can I get a motion?
Second.
Motion by Mr. McCormick, a second by Mr. Woods. Seeing no questions, roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orwell.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
What are they?
Board Member Love. Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. This is 12.4, resolution approving SES board strategic allocations. I want to make sure that there's a notation that the item amount changed to $78,597.74. These programs are for Keystone Elementary, $6,000, Scenic Hills Elementary, $5,000, Georgian Hills Middle, $6,000, Bruce Elementary, $10,000, Westside Elementary, $4,000. Cherokee Elementary, $1,594.74. Dunbar Elementary, $5,000. Newberry, $15,000. White Station Elementary, $15,000. Gardenview Elementary, $5,000. Robert R. Church, $6,000. For a total. Can I get a motion and a second? Motion by Ms. McKissick, a second by Ms. Love. Ms. Love, you have a question?
Can I add $1,000 to Westside Elementary School for the lounge beautification project? Thank you.
So you're making an amendment to West Side from,
And while it's open, any more board members want to donate?
oh, I'm sorry,
To
West
a
Side
teacher
from,
lounge?
are you, West Side Elementary for under Ms. McKissick or under, you're adding 1,000 to this?
Yeah, I'm
particular-
asking to add $1,000
Make an amendment to 5,000 instead of the 4. Mr. Woods?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have just a quick question to Superintendent Hobson. And,
This is Dr. Ray.
Dr.
Ray.
Superintendent Hobson is probably at home.
well, I know he did text me say he's not listening to this meeting. Superintendent Ray, and I was looking at Mr. Johnson and Ms. Phelan. Billy asked this before, but how are we project managing these allocations to make sure they're getting done timely? Is that happening by administration to make sure, because board members may approve and then assume that it's getting done? Is there somebody who wakes up every day making sure that the work's getting done?
Beth.
She's getting some support. Besides Stephanie, who project manages all hers and mine.
So let me follow up with you, Mr.
No,
Woods, on that
I don't
question.
even answer now, but
yeah, we'll follow up.
So I'll publicly state my recommendation.
Okay.
This is too many projects that we haven't identified a staff person, either in the board office or somewhere else, that wakes up every day making sure this is getting done, that principals are doing what they're supposed to do. And am I speaking out of turn? All right. So, well, let me restate this. I'm hoping that Stephanie and board member Bibbs have a recommendation to make sure this is getting done properly. I'll leave it at that.
With no objections, we're adding $1,000 to West Side if there are no objections to that amendment. Okay, can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. I'm going to see if we can add 12.5, 12.6, and 12.7 together. These are permission to engage community for rezonings to Hamilton Elementary and Middle School and Raleigh Egypt
Hamilton.
Middle and High School. I said Hamilton. Can I get a motion? Motion by Mr. Woods.
She's stacked.
No, I was doing the 3 together. Permission to engage community for the general rezonings. This is permission to engage community for Hamilton Elementary and Middle, and then permission to engage community about Raleigh, Egypt, and Middle High Schools. Can I get a motion?
Move.
A motion by Ms. McKissick and a second by Ms. Love. And again, this is just for clarification. This is community engagement meetings that will be scheduled throughout the districts that are being up for rezoning, and then for the reconfiguration that Dr. Burt mentioned in his presentation. Okay, Ms. Love, you have a question?
More so of a comment. I do know that community engagement has been working to schedule those meetings. So if we can have community engagement to send all of those board meeting dates and times to Shanice in the board office, so she can send them out to board members in a timely manner to ensure that if we're able to come, we're there. Thank you.
I do think that they started with board members and their districts to make sure that those board members were available, and we do want to make sure that all board members get that information. It needs to be on the calendar. But we did send out to board members in those districts to make sure they were available to host those meetings.
So one thing I want to stress, we're going to listen to the public. We're going to engage the community before making any formal recommendation. So tonight, let me be clear, it's not a proposal to do anything. It's a proposal to engage the community and listen. Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant. You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. 12.8 CNC Pilot Lab Kitchen Renovation. This is a new item. That's why it's before the board at this time.
Construction service CNC meal prep kitchen renovation project.
Can I get a motion?
The amount, $1,215,878.92.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Orgel. Second by Mr. McCormick. Mr. Orgel, have a question?
Sure. Thanks, Chair. So this is the pilot lab kitchen renovation. Do we have a slide on it or not?
No.
No slide. Explain where the pilot lab is going to be.
Okay, so if you're facing the 3176 CNC location, you're standing on the street, you're looking at the building. In
The
the
tall
back-
building, the six-story building?
No, it's at 3176, the old CNC location. The area that the Bear Company used to lease from us.
In the back that's still standing?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's going to remain standing. We're turning that into the pilot lab for kitchen prep area for CNC. So the activity that happens at North Side will be located in that area of the building that Bear used to lease from us, because we left that standing when we tore down the warehouse.
Okay.
And so this is for turning just about 8,000, square feet of that area into a kitchen prep lab, that renovation. It's not renovating the whole building, just the area we need for kitchen prep.
Is that the same building on the next line item where we're going to have to fix the wall?
Yes, but the wall runs then from the administrative building that's at the front of the facility all the way back to that leased Bear property. That's the wall we're building. That's the next contract.
So, can I save time just together? So, the wall on the administrative building, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, it would be the west side of the dock area by the freezer.
By the big freezer?
Yes.
That's a standalone freezer?
That's right. Yeah.
So that wall is still connected to the administrative building?
When we rebuild it, it will be, yes.
So now what's holding up the wall?
Yep. So that wall, the plan was when we demolished the warehouse was to leave that wall on the west side of the freezer in the dock area because it was non-structural but an exterior wall.
Okay.
Once we tore down the warehouse. To save money, we wanted to do a controlled demolition, leave the wall there and the electrical room that serviced that complex
that,
there to save money. And when we went into the design phase, A&Es came in and said, didn't meet seismic code, didn't meet wind, requirements, et cetera. And then the electrical room wasn't meeting code either, so we have to tear down the wall, rebuild the wall, and rebuild the electrical room that supports the facility.
So make clear to me what the wall's holding up, because the freezer's standalone, there's a dock right there. Is it what's holding up that dock area?
It's going to be tied into the roof that spans from the admin building all the way back to the pilot lab area. It's like 500 feet. And it'll be tied into the roof.
And then the trucks pull up to that and
Yep,
they load?
in the dock doors, load the food, and folks from the admin building can, take materials and food to the freezer area, and also from the pilot lab in the old Bear leasing area, we can also get to the cold storage and the freezer undercover.
So what's holding it up right now?
The wall isn't a structural wall holding up the roof. So we try to leave it there and try to tie it back in, but architects said the structural rigidity wasn't there, so we can't do that. So now we have to tear it down and build it back.
But it's not holding up the roof?
No, it's not a structural wall. It's connected to the roof like this.
Sure.
But it's not structural.
What's holding up the roof? There are beams?
There's beams. Beams that run from the floor to the roof.
And the wall's 500 feet long?
Yeah, it's about 500 feet. Yeah.
So there's no structural work required there's nothing, it's just a face, like it could be metal, it could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So what material are we going back with?
It's a metal framed wall.
And how much is the amount?
It's the whole contract for the wall is $809. About, call it almost 5 of that is to demo the wall, rebuild the wall. The rest of it's related to the electrical room, the grading, and the contingency related to that contract.
You took bids on that and everything?
Yes, and have been working real hard to try to get that.
Right, I saw you
Yeah.
sent me a note on that. Okay.
Yep.
I just want to understand. Okay, that's
Yep.
what. And then, because I'm already talking, so that's the wall demolition, the pilot lab kitchen.
Yes.
So we've got the offices in front,
Yes,
and then there's the long corridor, that the freezer, which is on the east side of the building.
that's right.
And the loading docks are, that's the wall we're rebuilding.
Yep.
But it doesn't go all the way to the building in the back, right? Because that's like 1,000 feet or 1,500 feet.
Right.
So there's a gap. We're doing it. So the building in the back, I'm just curious.
Yeah.
That's isolated back there, and I know there's a parking lot, and we talked about that.
Right.
But and that's the best place to put the pilot kitchen, or could that have gone somewhere else?
Well, the thought was it was an open space, and it's really close, the closest area to where the cold storage and the freezer is, because
Okay.
folks will be bringing material back and forth. And, that was logistically better from, a space layout standpoint.
So I'm just asking this. I
Yeah.
know we're trying to get moving, but now we've had a
Sure.
setback anyway.
Yeah.
You're only talking about 8,000 square feet?
The kitchen prep area itself is about 8,000 square feet? Yeah. Yeah, okay, yep.
I'm just making sure that you're not trying to make something fit because we happen to own it that
Oh.
could be used for something else. And if it wouldn't be better to put all that where you're not, because that's a problem with our Dr. Ray, that's a problem with decentralized, and we're starting to work on that with this whole plan with the CNC and the building that we bought over there. You're like 17 locations. So if you're at Gray's Creek, you got to drive 45 minutes to a meeting here for 5 minutes, and you got to drive back, so you've wasted half your day, and then you're not servicing our students like we need to. We're not being efficient. So that's why we're going all in one spot. So I'm
Yeah.
saying, is that the best
Yeah.
place to put it?
Yes.
Or is that where you had 8,000 square feet?
No, we studied the efficiency and where we needed things to be. And then as a secondary confirmation, we also studied the cost difference between locating that operation within Building 7 at 3030 Jackson versus at 3176 in the pilot lab, and that was the best decision.
What was the difference in price? I'm just curious.
I don't have that with me at this moment, but I'm happy to follow up with it.
I bet the guy next to you knows.
No, Chief Johnson doesn't. Deputy Superintendent doesn't.
So how much is the pilot lab?
It's 1.2 million. That's the contract before you.
Mr. Woods?
Thank you. You probably need to add another 200,000 to it, just because I'm sure billable hours with how long Billy had to speak. We probably just ran up the project management fee. On the matter, Scott said jokingly about items that from Bayer. I have a more of a point I want to make, and I've talked to our general counsel. State law allows us to go in executive session when we're talking about security and safety of our facilities. Dr. Ray, what I'm calling for is us to get together as a board, probably with Mr. Orgel being present as our facility chair, but really to have a conversation around how are we securing and providing proper safety and oversight to our facilities, buildings that we close, particularly as we go through potential consolidation and the footprint work, and then any facility that we acquire, making sure that there's a real strategy and focus around making sure that we're protecting the asset of those facilities. Too often, we have an asset that we're looking to sell, and we get information of why that asset is deteriorated in value because of someone possibly taking advantage of the lack of security or that may or may not be happening at that facility. So I think we just need to have a broader conversation, possibly go in executive session. I'll pitch it back to our general counsel if that's possible to do as a board regarding such a topic.
Yes, I think that is appropriate, and I will follow up with the board for the permission, if that's the will of the full board.
Ms. Love?
So this is a question, and I know you don't have the answer right now, but you can get it back to me within the next week or so. What would be the cost of fully preparing meals in our schools?
I definitely have to get back to you on that.
I would like to know that number versus the amount of money that we're spending now.
Okay. Okay.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick.
I'm sorry. Is there another question before we take a vote? Mr. Orgel?
Yeah, sorry. The follow-up is, in that, how big is that building you're putting that lab in?
I'm going to have to defer, y'all. Anybody got a?
Isn't it like 50,000 square feet?
Mr. Ogle, can we follow up with that, with the answer to the question? Do you mind if we follow up with the answer to that question? They don't have it really.
If I had to guess, I
available.
would say that's about right.
We're renting, there's no reason to say
Yeah,
we're renting
I
to
would
Bear.
guess that's about right, but happy to follow up with the exact number.
What's the plan for the rest of that building? If you're only using like 20% of it.
The pilot lab area will be a portion of the Central Nutrition Services team will be located in that facility and also in the admin building as well. So people from Northside, people from Messick, those folks will be located in that facility.
In the 8,000 square feet? Or in
In the admin building and in the full area that we used to lease the Bear property to. That whole building will be CNC staff.
Gotcha. This
Right.
is, and this allocation is just for
Just for the
8,000
pilot
square-
lab.
Yeah, gotcha.
You'll see something else come through for ADA and, elevator and
Yeah,
stuff like
okay.
that for the
Good.
remaining renovations to that property.
Roll call vote.
Board Member McKissick.
Aye.
Board Member Orgel.
Aye.
Board Member Woods.
Aye.
Board Member Love.
Aye.
Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
That motion passes. 12.9, CNC wall demolition and replacement.
Yes, this is Central Nutrition Center freezer and cooler improvement project for the total bid of $809,683.
Can I get a motion? A motion by Ms. McKissick. Second by Ms. Coleman. Can I get a roll call vote?
Board Member McKissick. Board Member Orgel. Board Member Woods. Board Member Love. Board Member McCormick. Board Member Bibbs. Board Member Coleman. Board Chair Avant.
Aye.
You have 8 votes in the affirmative.
Okay, that motion passes. 12.10, Superintendent Search and Installation Committee Charter. As board members are aware, in order for us to start this process, we don't have a committee that this falls under, so we have to do an ad hoc committee installation. So I'm asking the board to consider a motion to establish an ad hoc committee. The request is to start on 1/29 for a duration of about until October 31st. Purpose is to conduct national search, interview, and recommend candidates for next superintendent of Shelby County Schools. Part of that process will be to develop and design a search process for superintendent in Shelby County Schools, secure a firm for national search, conduct background screenings, interviews, and contract negotiations, conduct community meetings to ensure an open and fair process, promote relationship between board and instrumental local, state, and national leadership, and to determine and refer top candidates to recommend for the board as employment for Shelby County Schools. The committee will meet on an as-needed basis to develop a process in hiring the superintendent, and as I mentioned, the first meeting will be tomorrow if this charter is approved. Can I get a motion and a second, and then we can have discussion? A motion by Mr. McCormick, a second by Ms. Coleman. Ms. Love?
Chair, I have a couple of questions, more so concerns. I feel that this should have been discussed with the entire board first as it relates to creating a committee. I'm not sure if, and I guess I have to get direction from policy and legal, could we not amend the superintendent's evaluation committee to add this as a part of the superintendent search and installation committee? I'm concerned about the date. I think that, in my opinion, the end date should not be there, because if we get to October 31st and we have not either found a superintendent or we don't have nominations for a superintendent, this date may not be conducive to that. I'm also concerned about the external members. Our attorney, Herman Morris, which I think he'll already be involved because he is our board attorney, County Commissioner Michael Whaley, Mayor Lee Harris, and Mayor Jim Strickland. I'm very concerned why these are external members. And then I'll even go back to ask the question, when former superintendent who was interim superintendent, what was the process that was in place? Because I wasn't a board member. So what was the process in place as it related to him being hired as an interim superintendent until the time that he became a permanent superintendent? What was the process?
So there wasn't an actual committee established. They had an interim superintendent and then made a decision not to do a national search, which is a little different than our process. If the board is interested in doing a national search, under the research that was done by the board office, the requirements of this particular committee don't fall under superintendent evaluation. And so since there isn't a purpose under the evaluation, that's why it is my recommendation to create a committee. That information that has external members should have been removed because that was put in place incorrectly. The board as a whole will have to decide on process, timeline, and then those external members that should be engaged in this process, which includes teachers, teachers unions, district employees, parents, student voice. Those all should be decided by the board as a whole.
Okay, so I'm in the opinion that we don't need to take any action on this today, that if we're going to discuss the superintendent search, it needs to be in a committee meeting. Whatever committee we want to put it in, we can put it in there, but I'm not comfortable with this. I'm not comfortable with this at all. So we can postpone it. We can have a discussion tomorrow, whatever committee it is. We can amend the committee, whatever it is that we need to do. I'm not comfortable with this at all.
So if we are having a discussion about the superintendent search under our current bylaws for other committees, that's not really a place for that, which is why there's a recommendation for the ad hoc committee. So if board members would like to postpone creating a committee for the search, we can, talk about that in a different meeting, but this is a recommendation based on the board's decision to have a national search.
So, let me say this. So I'm not going against what we stated to conduct a national search, and I know that the process is already far behind. So I'm not questioning that. I'm questioning the committee. I'm questioning the dates. I'm questioning the external members, and even the scope, because even when we look at item number 4 where it says conduct community meetings, I really think that we need to first, when we hire a firm, we need to lay out our I guess the process as it relates to it, and not saying that I'm almost finished, and not saying that we as a board, we're going to conduct those community meetings. I think it needs to be a conversation to see if whatever firm we hire, if they will do the process of engaging the community, bringing us back the recommendations that they've received, and we do what we need to do as a board to hire our next superintendent.
So, Ms. Love, I think the only way that you can get to those points is if you have a discussion about the process, and in order for the board to make a decision collectively about what that process should be. That is the purpose of having the meeting tomorrow, so that board members can express concerns about what they think the timeline should be, if they want to hire a national firm, what components the national firm could offer in this process, if they want to conduct those community meetings, or if we want to hire someone locally to conduct those community meetings. It's hard to do that unless we at least have the meeting to discuss what parameters the board is interested in.
Yes, ma'am, and in closing, I'm not questioning what we need to do. I'm questioning the committee, I'm questioning the date, and I'm questioning the external members.
Mr. Orgel?
No, thank you for putting this together. The timeline seems aggressive, and I don't know if other board members may have a little problem with it. I think it's just so important and want to get it right, and I applaud you for a short notice getting this done. Is there a way we could maybe put this off until we get the charter where everybody agrees on it?
Sure.
And then do it that way, so we don't have to negotiate the charter in this group. Everybody may have a little bit of problems, and you were trying to do a good job and such an important, and you had to deal with the contract and everything else, which a lot of work and a retirement party for Teresa Jones to boot. So I just wonder if maybe we could put this off for another meeting and then get it right, and then so we can start doing the hard work, because I hate for there to be dissension on something so important.
So
And
I will send
we only get to do
around,
this
I will
once.
send around this charter and ask board members to give feedback about the timeline. And then we can postpone till next meeting. But I would say that we do not need to have the meeting until we have made some decisions about the committee. Mr. McCormick?
Thank you, Chair. That was my question. So we will not have the meeting tomorrow to discuss?
I don't think that we can have the meeting unless we have at least a committee in place. So if board members are not comfortable with the charter.
Why couldn't we do executive committee, or why couldn't we add it to the evaluation?
Well, the executive committee has to be, if it's something pending based on general counsel's feedback. The
Can
executive.
we not have an executive meeting that's open to the public?
Unfortunately, that's not, that wouldn't be, this particular conversation wouldn't be appropriate for an executive session.
To discuss forming an ad hoc committee wouldn't fall under executive?
No, because it is not a conversation to discuss any scope of litigation, any litigation strategy. This is more operational.
And could we not then just fold this under the evaluation committee to discuss to form the ad hoc committee?
I'd have to check the policy. I know that there's a superintendent evaluation policy as well as a board committee policy. So what I'd like to do is take a moment to look at those two policies and
It's 9 o'clock.
reconcile it.
Take all the time you need. I mean, I'd like to get this ball rolling too, and you know, and I appreciate. I mean, these are great questions, and I don't see why we can't meet tomorrow and hammer this out. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask general counsel to at least weigh in.
No, wait, please wait.
I'm asking general counsel to weigh in about whether or not this could be folded into a different committee, because after I asked the board to research this, that was my understanding that it did not fall under any other committee.
I mean, my understanding of how committee agendas are formed, it's based on the committee chair's prerogative as to what is appropriate for that agenda. So in terms of another agenda, whatever committee chair believes that that particular topic is related to the, you know, to the subject matter of that committee, I don't see a problem with the board moving forward with that topic on another, in another committee.
Ms. Bibbs?
So I was actually going with 1 point, but I think 2 things according to what General Counsel has said. We actually have audit budget finance tomorrow, so I feel like maybe we could discuss it in there, because ultimately we have to pay for things. So I think that's one opportunity. And then number 2 is, since we have a meeting already scheduled for this quote-unquote
Timeframe.
committee, we could also say that this is superintendent evaluation and and Scott can say he wants to talk about that subject and him lead that committee. Either way, we can have the conversation tomorrow. It's just based upon what committee it's going to fall in until we have this charter done. I think it is best for us to agree upon the charter before we actually move forward with it and vote on it. Another opportunity for us to move forward with it is we know that we have to come back next week regarding doing a special call meeting for Dr. Ray's contract. At that point in time, after we have our meeting tomorrow, we can come back with an approved charter that we all agree upon and can vote in public on it.
Okay, Mr. Woods. I'm sorry, Ms. Kissick and then Mr. Woods.
Just want to echo the points pretty much that everyone else has said, because, I mean, there's draft written all over this, and so draft would have a connotation that has been discussed to reach a draft. So I don't know if IBO even, but whatever means, I would love to still have this meeting tomorrow. I think the entire community wants us to get started, so by whatever means we can make that happen, you know, I would support.
Mr. Woods?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I echo Mr. Orgel's comment that this gets the conversation started. But yeah, I think as any committee can add a topic of discussion, I was overhearing Mr. Orgel and Ms. Love talk about how sometimes we're talking about AP courses in a facilities meeting. I think Stephanie makes every committee meeting, regardless if she got a point she want to get out, she takes advantage of talking about it in that committee structure because we're all together and it's an opportunity to have a robust conversation. And so, so with that, Madam Chair, I welcome, because I know we'll have a full attendance in our Audit, Budget, Finance Committee. I'm sure a search firm will come at a cost, to Ms. Bibb's point, and I think we can hash out any concerns we have with the structure of the charter, and then can bring it back to next month's meeting for approval. I think what the public wants, and again, I can just only speak for those I talked to in my constituencies, but we made it clear to them that this process could take 12 to 18 months. Based on the presentation I heard from Dr. Burks tonight, what I heard from Dr. Ray last week, is that it's clear that this team is moving forward to do the tough work, and that the community expects us to have a fair and open process as we select our next leader. It doesn't have to start tomorrow, because we got a great deal of work to do. But I do welcome tomorrow to start the conversation about what the charter should look like.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So this is, do we need to do a vote on the?
There's several games you can play.
Mm-hmm.
Game number one,
Mm-hmm.
you can vote on this. Game number two, you can postpone indefinitely, which gets it out of the way.
Okay.
Or the maker of the motion can beg leave to withdraw the motion, and if there's no objection to it, it disappears.
So why don't we just postpone this motion until we come back with an agreement about the charter?
To postpone would be to postpone to the next meeting.
Yes.
You can make that motion.
So I'm going to make a motion for us to postpone until the next month's meeting in order for us to have approval of a charter. So I was asking to postpone the recommendation of the charter until next month, but if that is not the will, then I just need to know which direction we're wanting to go.
Yeah, so I think parliamentarily, my interpretation, because when you postpone, it's not saying that it's going to come back, but ultimately, if we all agree that at a date certain that a charter recommendation, doesn't mean, I want to be clear, she's not saying that this charter in this format. Okay, so I don't have an objection to postponing it. What's the objection to it?
So the motion was to postpone to next month.
Okay, no.
So if we vote on that motion, after that, I would like to make a motion that we add it to the Audit Budget Finance Committee meeting tomorrow.
So why don't we just have to recommend the person who made the motion, which would have been Scott, if he wants to remove the motion?
If they beg leave to withdraw the motion,
Mm-hmm.
if there's no objection to withdrawing the motion, it will disappear from in front of us.
And then what will happen?
So we've already decided that we'll do continued discussion to outline process tomorrow, and then so that folks can have an opportunity. Mm-hmm. We just would add it as an item to the audit.
Request leave then.
Request leave of the motion.
Withdraw the motion.
Madam Chair, I request leave to withdraw the motion.
Is there any
Is there-
objection?
Oh.
So no objection, that is withdrawn. Okay, and now we have, there's no more items under superintendent's recognition, so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Madam Chair.